And we are live. All right, let's see. Did I get the camera set up correctly? Yeah, close enough. Maybe a little bit like this, so that you could see my smiley face a little bit better. Excellent. All right, if any of you are watching this live, please post in the comments whether you can hear me well enough. I'm always not entirely sure whether my microphone is set up correctly. I can hear myself talk, in the earpiece, but I'm not always confident that that passes through. I am casting live to Facebook, YouTube, and Odyssey. And Kevin is there and says that the sound is loud and clear. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate it. I will be occasionally looking over at Odyssey, trying to see if it is able to cast it live or not. It's doing something odd. If you're on Odyssey and you're able to see me, there you go. So Odyssey is doing things with a little bit of a delay. The comments that pop up on Odyssey don't show up in my interface. So I will be keeping an eye on the screen occasionally. If there is something there in the chat, I will address it the best I can. All right, Brandon is there, so Facebook can hear me. That's good. This time around, I am not planning to show any guns. So I don't think YouTube is going to kill the stream, but you never know. What I do want to talk about today is in a little bit more detail is some flashlight, and one of them fell on the floor. Give me a moment to grab one, and we'll get moving. And I am back. So a little bit later today, I may have a couple of guests. Derek from Northwestern Firearms is likely to drop by. He's got a good amount of practical experience with flashlights and their use, and I'm curious about his take on it. And my frequent guest, Slav Guns, might swing by as well. Before I get moving on the flashlight business, I do have a couple of new toys here, rifle scope related, and I'll switch a camera. I'll show you. This camera is doing something weird. Interesting. There we go. It's glitching a little bit. That's odd. Okay, now it's kind of live. No, it's not. That's annoying. But anyhow, so the two scopes I have here that you will see the moment it finally refreshes. Let's see, I'm going to restart this camera. Let's start it back up. Okay, these scopes you see here, this guy is a US Optics 10 power. Why is everything so blurry? Yeah, one of my cameras is doing something weird, guys. I don't need it for much today, so I think we'll be okay. Another one is a Schmidt & Bender ultra short 5-20 by 50. I want to take a look a little bit at ultra short scopes. If this camera crapped out on me, I'll be very disappointed. But anyhow, I don't need it for too many things. So the reason I have these two new scopes are twofold. With a fixed 10 power scope, well, I have it for sort of a nostalgic reasons, but also I want to do a proper head-to-head comparison of a truly modern 1 to 10 power low power variable and a fixed 10 power scope, once again modern high quality 10 power scope with an offset red dot, and set them up on similar rifles and spend months, probably quite a long time, using both for broadly similar things, right? The idea is to see if a larger objective on 10 power makes enough difference in my normal use, and if the offset red dot can replace a dedicated 1 power optic like the low power variable set on 1x. So that's going to be the purpose, and we'll see where that takes me. But that is not the primary purpose for today's conversation. Today I really want to spend a little bit of time and talk about light, measuring light, and what some different terms that pertain to light, what they really mean. The trigger for me wanting to discuss this, flashlights is not the normal topic that I cover, right? So the trigger for me wanting to discuss this was this night shooting class that I took over the 4th of July weekend. And in that night shooting class, before, when shooting started, one of the instructors, they gave us a lecture on flashlights, how to choose flashlights, what kind of activation methods, and all that was very good. And then he started talking about lumens and candela, and he really didn't understand what they mean. Now, I mean, his recommendations were somewhat reasonable, right? He's a practical guy. He's used different things. And sorry, guys, I'm sweating for some reason. Maybe drinking coffee this late in the day. And his reasoning was somewhat sound, but he really, really didn't know what any of that means. So I went and looked a little bit, and it turns out most people don't talk about this stuff, don't really know what these things mean. To be fair, illumination methods of all sorts is not quite my field of expertise. My field of expertise is on the other end of this, imaging and radiometry and stuff like that. But I've been around these things enough that there are a couple of specific things that I think they're worth revisiting to some degree. I'm going to do this a little bit differently than I usually do. I'll just talk a little bit about light and flashlights and stuff like that, and typical usage. And pardon me. Excuse me. And typical usage, and I'll keep an eye out in the comments. And if there's any questions, anything you guys want to ask, just go for it. This time, I'm not going to wait until the end to answer everything. We'll just go through it as we go along. Okay. All right. So everybody pretty much owns a flashlight, right? Something like this. Maybe, yes, no. This is a Surefire E2T MV. That's the flashlight I used most during the class and liked it quite a lot. And when we shop for flashlights, we usually are trying to go for the biggest, smallest, etc. And we look at the different different spec numbers that the typical flashlight manufacturers give us, and we basically try to get the most performance in the smallest package. That's what usually people do. But what are we really looking at, right? The most common phrase I hear is, "Oh, this flashlight has the most lumens." What does it really mean? What is a lumen? Or it has the most candela. What is candela? What does it mean for real performance? And do you really want the most lumens? So one of the stupidest thing the guy at the class said was that, "Oh, lumens don't matter. You want the most candela." Well, I can think of a good number of applications where you don't want the most candela. Lumen would probably be somewhat better, measure. Another generally useful measure is a throw distance. And if I were to think of how I would try to choose a flashlight based on specifications, I would probably be looking at combination of the luminous flux, or I guess power if you wish, which is lumens, and throw distance. But I wouldn't necessarily always go for the longest throw distance. So what does that all really mean? In general physics terms, when we talk about energy, that means overall amount of energy, irrespective of time, space, anything like that. When we want to figure out how much energy something outputs in a given amount of time, now we talk about power. And power really is just energy per time. Okay. What the number of lumens is, a luminous flux in many ways for a flashlight, is the flashlight equivalent, not just flashlight, illumination equivalent of power, right? It basically tells you that if you take this flashlight, this is a Crimson Trace flashlight, also one of the ones I used, right? If you take a flashlight and you're just looking at it, how bright is it? How much power does it? How much energy does it spit out in a given time? That's how many lumens it is. Good evening, Doug. Welcome. Always here. It's always nice to see you. Not see. I can't see you. You guys can see me, but I know you're there. All right. Anyhow, lumens is essentially just power. The natural question is that why are we obfuscating everything, and how come we don't just say power? Well, light is, it's no good way of saying this. Light is weird because you can think of light in a variety of different ways. The most common ways are something called radiometric or photometric. Radiometric is basically power. If you're talking about radiometry, you'll talk about power, right? When you're talking about some radiometric measure, meaning you're not talking about lumens. Lumens come in when you start talking photometric units. And photometric units means that you normalize the amount of power by how sensitive a human eye is to it, right? That means that same amount of power that is emitted in, let's say, you have a white flashlight, that means it has all the different colors in it. Same amount of power emitted in one of the green wavelengths is going to look brighter to your eye than the same amount of power when it's emitted in blue or red wavelengths, right? So basically, it's called eye response normalization by eye response functions. In all of the photometric units, and that's lumens, candela, lux, nit, and there's a million of them. Generally, if you guys ever want to look for a readable but slightly more mathematical treatment of this, there's a late professor at the University of Arizona who wrote a really nice FAQ called Radiometry versus Photometry FAQ. And if I remember, I'll put a link in the video description afterwards. Okay. But anyhow, so every photometric unit is conditioned to based on what a human eye sees. What that means is that if this flashlight, for example, was also spitting out some energy in infrared, that would not change the number of lumens that it outputs, right? So you can put as much energy out in ultraviolet or infrared, but the lumen output will not be affected because the human eye cannot detect that energy. And because of that, the lumen output is not affected in any way. Okay. Why do so many people nowadays say, well, the number of lumens, meaning luminous flux, that a particular flashlight outputs really does not matter? It does not matter because you do not know where it goes, right? You can put on a candle, right, and light goes out in all directions. It all counts, right? But if you're trying to illuminate something with a flashlight, you only care about light that goes within a certain angle. When we talk about angles in the 3D space, we're not talking about radians, we're talking about steradians, right? We're talking about solid angle, sort of a three-dimensional angle. Well, two-dimensional, I guess, but okay. It's frustrating to listen to people talk about things they don't know, especially when they expound on these measures. I hope you don't mean me, but yeah, I agree. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. So I am going to try to switch to another camera. I've got a flashlight here that can sort of illustrate this concept. And that's why I set up a second camera, because I wanted to see this is going to work for me. All right. So sorry for my messy desk. Let's see. Okay. So this is a flashlight. Okay. It is one of those cheap flashlights with a lens. It's not a reflector. It's like LED lens or style. Notice there's a very bright spot in the center and a little bit more energy spilled around, right? As I adjust it a little bit, notice that all of the energy is in the center, right? And very little energy spilled around, right? Here, let's see it like this. Here and here, the output in lumens is the same. It is the same flashlight. Pardon me. It is the same flashlight. I speak to people in plain terms like throw and spill. That's actually a very good way of doing this, right? Throw and spill are actually very good terms. So when we're just looking at this flashlight, in one setting, it has a lot of throw, very little spill, meaning nothing goes to the sides, very little, right? In a different setting, a lot goes to the sides, not as much goes out to long distance. And but lumen output is the same. If you look at the specs, if you look at just the lumen output without looking at the throw, you're not going to get much. This is where candelas come in. At some point, somebody went and looked at the specs and said, oh, we need to know about candelas, right? Okay, so what is a candela? Candela is actually a pretty good measure. Candela is lumen per steradian. Steradian is a measure of a solid angle, right? If you imagine basically a conical angle coming out of the flashlight, it basically tells you in 1 unit of this angle how much power the flashlight is outputting. That is actually a pretty decent measure because it describes what Mr. Marty Diver talked about as throw and spill, solder, right? And you get a pretty good idea of how much power going in one direction. There is still a problem, however. You can set up a bulb assembly that will concentrate a lot of energy into a very narrow angle, and the value in candelas, okay, right, and the value in candelas is going to be very, very high. Is that useful? Well, for some things it is, right? If you're looking for something very far away, where basically you need to throw, that's where the term throw comes from, where you need to throw a huge amount of energy downrange and look at something far away, that's not a bad thing, right? But is that the setup you want to have if, let's say, you heard a sound in the night and you're trying to figure out if somebody is hiding in there? Anybody at all? Okay, I'll save you some time. The answer is no, right? Because you want to illuminate the room fairly well. Now, there's an exception to that, right? If you have some background lighting, you already know somebody is in there and you're trying to blind them, that's a different ballgame, right? You want to aim a flashlight straight in the eye, and you want as much energy as humanly possible right in there with not too much spill, right? But I'm not necessarily going to plan on that situation. So for indoor use, I actually want the spill, or basically this throw angle, if you wish, you can talk about it as throw angle. I want that to be wide. And here's the kicker. I want the light distribution to be very, very uniform. Let's see if I can simulate this. It may be a little bit too bright, but I will try. This camera is just giving me trouble today. Come on, camera, come alive. Oh, that's a fun. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put this on lower intensity levels. Okay. No, there's too much reflection. I'm afraid this is not going to work as well as I'd like, guys. So here's the problem. You can say that you have a certain throw or a certain spill. Oh, there we go. Back in the day, about 15 years ago, I was a cave diver and got into lithium-ion powered lights. Way more available power. That is true. You could drive the LED to max power or over for home build LED lights. That's correct. And if you're underwater, you want a lot of light. Water absorbs light very quickly. You want any sort of illumination, you need bright lights. Generally, these days, LED brightness is not an issue. It's easier to pick up a flashlight with a lot of light. And I see people do that. And I did an experiment. I had one of them. I had one of them at night take his brand new. It was I don't remember what the flashlight was. Like a super bright 3000 lumen thing. We turned off all the lights, sat there for a little bit, let his eyes adjust to the light. Then I put on sunglasses. He didn't, and I had him turn on his flashlight. He lives in a house with very light-colored walls. And, oh, there we go. Mr. Shooting Gallery Northeast is here. Vortex Strike Fire 2. Excellent. I look forward to seeing that. But anyhow, so he had light-colored walls, and I had him turn on the flashlight. And here's the catch. He went just as blind as the guy who he was going to illuminate did. There is a limit to how bright of a light you want indoors. And if you're standing in front of anything with mildly reflective, you really don't want all that power going straight down. Okay? It's just not wise. You want a nice wide throw. You don't indoors, you don't care how far you can throw. None of us have 800-yard long living rooms. At least I don't. Maybe you guys do. And I don't particularly care. Now, if it is a rifle-mounted light where distances are longer and all that, that is a different ballgame. For rifle-mounted light, I actually want a fair amount of light. But getting a good amount of light nowadays is not hard, right? So this, for example, Crimson Trace here, it's 400 lumens, and it's a fairly tight beam, so the throw is pretty long. It's a tiny stream light. It is 500. The throw is a little bit wider. Still pretty good. In a tiny little thing, you're getting 400, 500 lumens, and outdoors, it's pretty much sufficient for me to shoot something more than 100 yards away. So I'll pretty much call it good. Okay. So here is the final straw in this whole ointment, and why you can't really get enough from specs, because one of the more important things, they do not define. No flashlight manufacturer that I have seen to date has made any effort, at least not that I've seen, maybe there are some out there, has made any effort to define the uniformity of the spot. Okay, and that is basically a problem. When you say that you have a lot of spill, meaning there's a lot of light going at a wide angle, so you can see something, how do you define it? There are a couple of different ways of doing this, right? You can define this as saying the intensity at edges of some angle is no less than, let's say, 60% or whatever is in the center. There are ways to define it. You can talk about something called bucket of power measurements. There's a bunch of different ways of doing this. And I have yet to see any flashlight manufacturer do it. And I went and looked at a ton of different flashlights. I have a bunch of Phoenix flashlights, some Surefire Streamlights, Crimson Traces, and a bunch of others. Depending on how they design the reflector, there are significant differences in the ratio of illumination dead on in the center versus the edges of the projected spot. And that makes a significant difference. Yeah, pretty much. Couple more things on light measurement units. Manufacturers are getting more creative and trying to throw more various terms at you. The two terms I've seen them use in a spectacular and competent manner are lux and nits. Okay. So far, we've talked about lumens, which is essentially how much power a flashlight spits out. And we talked about candelas, which is a unit of how many lumens you have in a steradian, meaning how much power you are outputting in a certain angle. Okay. Lux is a measure of something else entirely. Lux is a measure of luminance. Lux is not how much anything outputs, right? Lux is a unit of how much energy is incident on a particular spot. For example, when you talk about small photometers that photographers used to use for trying to figure out flash metering, exposure, and all sort of stuff, oftentimes they gave you a measurement in lux. Sometimes it's in electron volts, which is a spectacular, an even stupider thing than most photometric units, right? But then they would measure the amount of light in lux, okay? And the amount of light in lux is basically tells you for a given surface how much light is falling on it, okay? And nits used to be commonly used for describing how bright a particular display is, which is what that unit is for. And then somebody found it and decided they can use it for other things, and I don't understand how, unless they really don't understand what they're talking about. Nits, basically, if you have a illuminator that's basically a flat surface, I should have an example here somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay. So if you have a light like this is like a flat video light. There we go. Okay, because it is a flat surface outputting light, I can talk about nit output of light from this thing in nits. Okay. If you find a flashlight manufacturer that's trying to define the light output of a conventional flashlight in nits, don't buy anything from them. And if they start talking about lux, don't buy anything from them either. In principle, maybe I should take that back. In principle, you can define how bright a particular flashlight is in lux if you basically say, okay, let's say 25 yards from the source on a white wall of a certain area, this is how many lux this wall sees, and that will actually tell you a pretty decent idea of how bright a flashlight is, but I've never seen anybody define it that way. They just say lux, and that is really a rather pointless way of defining it. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. So that is largely that. If you're buying a flashlight, think about how you want to use it. Think whether you're looking to use it indoors or outdoors, whether it's sort of a searchlight where you need a tight beam that goes far and you're looking for something far away, whether that is something you want to illuminate an area indoors and illuminate it brightly and evenly. Okay. For these two separate things, you may need two different flashlights. You can probably use one for both. A lot of modern flashlights work just fine for that. But if you're looking to optimize, I'd look at two different things, right? So when I'm looking for a flashlight, weapon mounted or not, to use with a handgun versus the one to use with a rifle, well, that would be weapon mounted. I look for something a little bit different. On the rifle, I want the throw, and for a handgun, I want the spill, to use MRT divers terms. Okay. All right. I hope this makes sense. And we're about 30 minutes. I usually try to do these monologues for about 30 minutes. If you guys have any questions, anything you want me to address related to anything I've touched on, or about rifle scopes, go for it. and I will have a drink of my coffee, and if no questions come in, I'm going to switch to talking about rifle scopes a little bit and talk a little bit about light transmission, stuff like that. All right. Nothing on Odyssey, and nothing on YouTube and Facebook. Okay. All right. Let's talk about light transmission. Light transmission is one of those things that sometimes on different forums and stuff, it pops up all the time. So a lot of my inspiration for a lot of things I want to pontificate about comes from different forums. And light transmission is one of those things that every once in a while somebody latches onto and starts talking about. It's not just like lumens alone or candelas alone is not a good measure what a flashlight does. Light transmission is not a good measure of a performance of a rifle scope. Most people who talk about light transmission are older guys, and I don't blame them. If you're old enough to remember the really old rifle scopes, then light transmission was actually important. Why? Because the anti-reflection coatings were not really commoditized yet. So just because of better or worse coatings, you could have a fairly significant difference in performance of a rifle scope. But paradoxically, what made it look better was not how much light got through a rifle scope. The important part was what the light that didn't get through, where did that go and what did that do, right? Remember, there is I should have prepared it. There's a picture, diagram of a Hensoldt rifle scope that I have that I keep on using for a lot of different things. And I am going to pull it up again and put it up on the screen and explain what I mean. There we go. Hensoldt, bless their heart. I was once looking at one of their scopes, and I looked at the manual, and it turned out that they were kind enough to put a pretty decent diagram of where different lenses are in a Hensoldt rifle scope. So the objective is on the left, and I think you guys should see my mouse. Tell me if you do or not. The light comes in from here, from the left, and there's a bunch of surfaces, right? So if we count a different number of air to glass surfaces, we'll get what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Conservatively 20, there could be a few more. I am counting some lens assemblies as sandwiched together, like here, but it's entirely possible that they're air spaced. But so it's at least 20 different surfaces where an anti-reflection coating would be applied. And what this anti-reflection coating does is that it prevents light from reflecting, just as the name says. No matter how good the coatings are, some amount of light is always reflected. Where does it go? Ideally, if it got reflected and just disappeared somewhere, we would all not care one bit. Okay. Just doesn't matter. Because the way our eye sees, if there is a little bit less light making through the scope, but if the image fidelity has not changed, we will really not see the difference. It really does not make any sort of a difference for our eye. 20% less energy is really not that much. It sounds like a lot, it's not. Our eye is algorithmic in nature, and we, like 5% less energy, we probably won't even notice. At least not unless you're really looking for it. 20% you'll notice, but it's not that big a deal, right? And what we do notice really, really rapidly is the loss of image fidelity. And what the loss of image fidelity means, usually it means that the contrast and the color accuracy have gotten worse. Excuse me. And all this, pardon me, all this light that gets reflected off the surface, that's exactly what it does. It reflects off of the surface and starts going all over the place, hitting various internal elements, bouncing back in and out, and creating all sorts of stray light issues and all sorts of flare. And that has a detrimental effect on image quality. In the older days, before coating, high-quality anti-reflection coatings became really, really commonplace, one of the things that people saw was that in a having this live chat on the same day of some Arizona audit news has impacted my ability to join and enjoy. I look forward to watching this in the near future. Thanks so much for everything. I really appreciate you saying this. Honestly, so I'm not, I don't follow politics all that closely, right? Every 4 years I do, and that's more or less it. I did not realize that the Arizona audit news are coming out today. That's interesting. After we're done here, I'll go take a look. Okay. What was it? Oh yeah. So all this light that gets reflected and starts bouncing around and screws up image fidelity, it will make the contrast, the apparent contrast in the image lower, and that will oftentimes actually make it look darker to you. It's not actually darker. There's actually more light, right? Because some stray light is in there, but it will look darker because the contrast is not the same. Image will lose image pop and all this sort of stuff. So what we had was people were correlating lower light transmission of a rifle scope with it looking darker, which technically correlated to some degree, but in practice it was not due to transmissions, due to where the reflected light went. Okay. Another reason why light transmission matters to some degree is that if you use some really, really cheap optical elements, they will absorb some light, right? So the light not reflected, not transmitted, but absorbed by the material itself. But that honestly is a very marginal problem at best, simply because most modern decent rifle scopes use good enough glass where that's not really an issue, and good enough coatings where that is not really an issue either. Okay. So what is light transmission in principle? People use the word light gathering and all sorts of other nonsense. Yeah, all of this is pretty much nonsense. A rifle scope does not gather light. It's got an objective lens. For this one, it's what, 40 millimeter, 42, something like that. Where's the box for this thing? Somewhere. It has a certain area. There's some amount of light incident on the subjective lens. Okay. How much of that light makes it out of the scope? We don't know. You can measure it in a variety of different ways. But if you measure all of the light incident on this entire objective lens of a rifle scope, and then you measure all of the light that makes it through the rifle scope, the ratio of that is your light transmission, right? That means that it has gone through at least 20 or thereabouts, and that will vary for different rifle scope designs. air to glass surfaces. Some of it got a little bit reflected, and some of it got through, right? And that ratio is the light transmission. I once spent a good amount of time with a very entertaining gentleman who was quite confident that his rifle scope transmitted more than 100% of the light. And I did not, to my great shame, I did not succeed in convincing him that it is impossible in a conventional passive rifle scope. He just did not believe me because the guy at Cabela's who sold him the scope said that it had more than 100% light transmission, and that had to be true. Okay, who am I to argue with the guy who sells scopes at Cabela's, right? Is it possible for a rifle scope to have more than 100% light transmission? For a conventional rifle scope, no. Is it possible to measure more than 100% light transmission for a rifle scope? Yes, I can measure it. How, you ask? Oh, quite easily. First of all, there is a certain error bar to the measurement, so if it has very high light transmission, you accidentally get into more than 100% range. I've actually seen this thing. I've once was screwing around. I have a light meter with this stuff, and I did a scaffold measurement with somebody. And then when he was not looking, what I did is I took a scope and I turned the reticle illumination up on 11, right? And we were not measuring very large light levels. This one's not that bright. And what the reticle illumination added was enough to push the transmitted ratio to above 100%. It wasn't really a very clean measurement, but hey, it worked. Drew is here. Hi, Drew. So Drew got a Dark Lord of Optics lighter after the last live cast, something just like this, except that one had a butane insert. This is a conventional weak lighter fluid type thing. I hope it works well for you, Drew. I was in Los Angeles last week where a buddy of mine lives, who I once in a blue moon smoked cigars with. So I had grand plans to go join him and smoke a cigar and all that sort of stuff. On the very first evening when we got to LA, I took my kids to a poke place, and I've eaten at that place many times, and it was always good and everything. Looked okay that day. And a few hours later, I felt the urge to go drive the porcelain bus and spent about a day and a half vomiting. Then about a day and a half sort of recovering, then got in a car and drove home. I think I just need to spend as little time as possible in Los Angeles. That city hates me. Every time I go to LA these days, something happens. That was kind of interesting, right? So I spent about 36 hours vomiting and dry heaving and all that. And that got me so, after that you feel like a truck drove over you. Got me so beat up and sore that the next day when I was already kind of feeling better, still looked a little green, and all that, I coughed and blacked out. It was painful. Interesting. Okay. But anyhow, so I know if you guys joined here late, I talked a little bit about how to evaluate and look at flashlight brightness and what's appropriate where. And I talked a little bit about rifle scope light transmission. If there are any questions, now's the time. And otherwise, I'm not entirely sure where you want me to steer this. I sort of got done with the two topics I wanted to cover a little bit. I can talk a little bit about some of my new toys. Here's a Schmidt & Bender ultra short 5 to 20 by 50, which I'm going to have a lot of fun with. They have these new DTII Plus turrets that I really wanted to play with, which was the reason I got my hands on this one. Who am I to argue with the guy who works at Cabela's? I don't know, maybe a scope designer? Lol, you're a comedian. Oh, yeah. Yeah, self-proclaimed. I'm actually not a rifle scope designer, right? I've never designed the rifle scope. My field of expertise is not really optomechanical stuff. General targeting systems, electro-optics, radiometry, imaging systems, that kind of stuff. For the last decade or so, I was not really designing this kind of stuff. I was designing test and calibration systems for rifle scopes, thermal cameras, and a bunch of other stuff. So I happen to know a lot about the performance metrics and how they work and all that. I know how to spec out a rifle scope and what to look for, but I can't really design one. Okay, well, at least not without 6-7 months of brushing up on ZMAX and a bunch of other things. But designing a rifle scope in many ways is more of a mechanical thing than optical. If you look at rifle scope companies, they employ a lot more mechanical people than optical people. Oh, this is good. How was the Schmidt and bend over? I don't know what you do with your Schmidt rifle scopes, my friend, but I think this is very nice. No, it's actually a nice scope. Schmidt is kind of an interesting company, right? I like some of their scopes. I don't like too much some of the others. When the ultra short first came out, I glanced at it briefly and decided not to look at it because of something goofy with the eyepiece. It was very hard to get behind and all that sort of stuff. They will not fess up to it. I asked them if there were any design changes, and they hum and haw and not say anything. But it's a lot better than it used to be. Now, I don't really see a whole lot of eyepiece issues. It's reasonably forgiving, reasonably easy to get behind. Even, like I said, the simplest test with many rifle scopes is that put it on max power and see if you can easily catch an image with a scope handheld. This is 20 power. I have no problem whatsoever maintaining the image, the side picture through this handheld. So they did something. They will not fess up to it, but they did something. The eyepiece is pretty good. Are there better rifle scopes that are in the same price range and same magnification range? I think so. Are there any better rifle scopes that are this short? I don't know about that. I'm always intrigued by very short designs, and of the scope of this type, there's still nothing better than the Schmidt. If you really want to look at really, really short rifle scope design, so Schmidt has this one. EOTech has the 5-25 Voodoo, which is excellent, but obviously not as nice as this, not as expensive either. Excuse me. And March has some really nice short stuff. And I'm kind of trying to get a nice coverage of different ones just to understand what I'm looking at, what I'm dealing with, and stuff like that. Although scope rings clamp the scope tubes just fine, I had an older scope rings that had a 0.5 millimeter thick foam or rubber pad inside the ring that touches the tube. Any thoughts? Good or bad idea? Oh, Mr. Northwest Guns, Derek is here, so I will let him in a moment. And Derek, nod if you are ready to go on. He is ready. All right, Mr. Northwest Guns is here. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, not too bad. How's everybody doing tonight?
Spectacular. Just spectacular. I have a new coffee mug.
Oh, very nice.
Anybody know about this place?
Nope.
24-hour campfire, no?
Never heard of it.
Where the outdoors flame always burn bright. It's actually one of the older forums, been around for more than 20 years, really focused on hunting and fishing and all the outdoors things. It's not a very well-known fact, but the guy who's a proprietor there, his name is Rick Bin. He kind of owns the place. I'm good friends with Rick. I really like the guy. So one of the few nice things about going to California occasionally is that I can hang out with Rick a little bit. I didn't get a chance to do it too much this time since I was sick. But when I was in Alaska, I got the chance. He also stopped by. We got to go fishing together, and I really enjoy Rick's company. He's a good dude, and I like his forum. But it's more of a hunting thing. So.
Nice.
Anyhow, so let's address this question, Derek, and I'll fill you in what we've been up to so far.
Okay.
So a lot of scope tubes do have something on the inside, and the idea was that they assumed that everything was drilled wrong: the mounts, the scopes, the bases, the tubes, and everything. And they were trying to put a little bit of padding in there so that the rings would not scratch up and bend and distress the scope all that much. With modern guns, scopes in the rings, there is really no good reason for it. And one of the things that pad did, among other things, it made the alignment a little bit goofier, made the friction between scope and the ring often worse, depending on what material they used. It got screwy and all that sort of stuff. In Europe, instead of using that, they would oftentimes just epoxy the scope into the rings, which is not something I recommend. I recommend using nice guns, nice scopes, and nice rings, and then you don't have to deal with any of this shit. Any takes on that, Derek?
I was gonna say one thing I know some people back in the day would do with their hunting scopes. They would put black electrical tape.
Yeah, it's the same business. Yes.
Yeah, and it wouldn't scratch the scope or anything like that. I personally won't use rings that have any sort of like foam rubber padding or anything like that in there.
For precision, it does not work. So
no,
I bet that in the old days, the people you're talking about, what they used were what was called the standard scope mounting system, where you had this dovetail in the front, and then wind adjustment in the back, and all the recoil was taken up by the front ring, and the rear ring was there mostly to get loose in the worst possible time. That was its purpose. It's a stupid way to mount scopes. Don't do it, basically. In case you thought in case you were trying to figure out what I really thought about it. Yeah, you know, with me, I always sugarcoat stuff. But yeah, I'm known for that. Anyhow, guys, since Derek showed up fashionably late, I'm gonna fill him in real quick, and we'll go from there. So I started out with flashlights, and one of the so what really prompted this, I went to France. I took a night class. The guy who gave us a lecture was convincing everybody that lumens don't matter, measure of luminous flux, and that you want a flashlight that has the most candela output. Candela is basically lumens per angle. That basically means you're trying to figure out how much energy is squeezed into a certain output angle. If you're trying to shine light very far, candela is not a bad way of looking at this, but it's not always the best way. For example, if you're indoors and you want some nice uniform illumination, whatever you're looking at, you do not want a very tight beam. You actually want the spill to go all over the place, so everything is nicely illuminated. While a flashlight will be on a rifle, that's a different ballgame. And on top of it, none of their flashlight manufacturers talk at all about uniformity of the spot, which is another issue altogether. You can talk about candelas all you want, you can talk about lumens all you want, but if you don't know how uniform the spot is, you don't really know which way it's going. That's basically the summary of what was a half-hour lecture that you missed. Shame on you.
I'll go back and watch it later tonight.
Nah, you'll be fine. That's pretty much the gist of it. So, thoughts on flashlights before we go and answer some questions.
They've come a long ways in the last 10 years. Let's go further back. Let's go 20 years back. They have
when you were walking around with a torch and a candle? Yeah.
Yeah, right? I thought that was you.
No. That was me you were looking for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. No. They've come a long way from what LED flashlights used to be 10, 12 years ago to now. Hold on. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. That was just the wife. I'll talk to her in a minute.
Okay.
So, one second. Gavin, call your mom. Tell her I'm on a live stream. I'll call her back in a minute.
Yeah, not on a live stream. You're frozen.
Yeah. Oh.
You're on a frozen stream.
Now I'm on a frozen stream. Okay. Well, at least I can be heard still.
Yes.
So, well, Okay, so I remember when LED flashlights started first coming out in the law enforcement field, probably, I don't know, 2008. Because that's when I bought my first Streamlight. When they,
Yeah, 7, 8, Surefire, that
yeah,
Streamlight. They were the first decent ones, about 80 lumens or so.
yeah, exactly. And because I had the TLR1
Mm-hmm.
and LED and that was an 80 lumen light for my pistol, and then I had the very first Streamlight Stinger
Mm-hmm.
in LED, and that was like 90 lumens. And then I used to carry as a backup was the Surefire G3, which was an incandescent.
Mm-hmm.
So I really miss my G3. I wish I don't even know what happened to that one, but they've come a long ways, and to still this day, I don't understand why people need a 500 or 1,000 lumen light for a flashlight. Because honestly, to me, I would rather have lowered the lumen because it won't destroy your vision at night. I don't know if there's anything you want to.
So actually, I addressed that a little bit actually, and I did some studies and took a bunch of pictures. I'll need to do a video on it. You need to. So you may want to reset yourself. You're still frozen. It looks really freaky. You look like an Addams Family member. Okay, so Derek is going to be back in a moment. Andrew has some good questions there, so I'll let Derek come back. There he is. I'll let him on. And he's unfrozen.
Hey! Okay, so.
Okay. It comes down to this business with spill and throw angles, and I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the lights that I use, it's a Surefire E2T MV.
Mm-hmm.
It's a momentary on light, which I prefer. It is 800 lumens, which sounds like a lot, and that is a lot. But the throw is super uniform and very wide.
Mm-hmm.
I can use this indoors, and I live in a house with white walls, so there's a lot of reflection. I can use this indoors very comfortably because there is no one concentrated spot reflecting and blinding me. But you cannot hide from this thing. From anywhere in the room, I turn this on, it goes all over the place, and everything is illuminated. There are no shadows, which is not a bad thing if you're trying to figure out if somebody's in there. However, this is not a light I would put on a rifle, and this is actually a question that Drew is pointing out here, where when you put it on a rifle, right, if you're way out front, it adds weight. And if you're toward the back, it's lighting up the whole side of the rifle. It's lighting up the whole side of the rifle because the throw is fairly wide. The throw angle is wide. So there is a lot of light going in the rifle. On rifles, I do two things. I tend to put the light a little bit further forward. And on some guns like AKs, which often have that front side tower, which actually reflects a lot of light into the optic, I put the flashlight underneath the rifle, and wire run out the remote switch to wherever it is convenient. And if the flashlight is hanging under the rifle, and I can't show you the setup here, I actually have a couple of AKs set up that way. If the flashlight is under the rifle, even if it is illuminating the bottom of the rifle a little bit, it is not blinding you with reflections. Okay? Mm-hmm. On top of that, for a lot of stuff, I shoot right and left-handed, and having the flashlight underneath, so if it's nice and flat, sometimes I even have it on top of the railed handguard. But on an AK or even on an AR, have it right under the handguard, in the same position where, you know how on Surefire makes a foregrip for Remington 870 with a flashlight built in, which is just under the barrel. That's roughly the position. You can do that on AKs, ARs, on conventional guns. That blinds you, the shooter, the least. Okay. It's making sense?
Makes sense. I always had mine mounted on the right side of the rifle because I was a right-handed shooter.
Yeah.
So I could have my left side clear of view.
Correct, yeah. On a lot of ARs, I do it that way because what happens on ARs, it's on the front of the handguard and there's nothing really in front of it. But on an AK, when I did this, the front tower was reflecting enough light back at me that it actually disturbed me. So I repositioned it on the bottom. The downside with this thing being on the bottom is that if you need to shoot something when you're low and there is something right underneath the rifle can potentially block the light, right? So that's sort of the downside. But I don't usually use the illumination too much if I'm prone in the grass or something like that. But that seems to work. A half blocked out lens on the light on the rifle. No, so don't block out the lens. Modern flashlight gets hot. You put electrical tape on it, it's going to melt on the lens.
True. Ruin your glass on your lens too.
Correct. And that's also Drew. The bottom, we'll try that. I can lengthen the switch wire to get it there, not an issue. Yeah, if I were you, I would try that out. It works fairly nicely. Okay, maybe what I should do next week. I'm traveling again. When I come back, I might do an Odyssey only stream so that I can show you how I set up different rifles with lights. And
Okay.
you'll see what I mean, right? I'm not pretending to be always right, but there's always a method to my madness.
Oh no, completely understandable.
Yeah. Ooh, you might know more about this. Olight is controversial in the gun community. Any thoughts or takes on them as far as reliability and putting them on a rifle or pistol? I have to admit, guys, that I have never used any products by Olight. Derek, any experience?
I have like 2 small pocket lights that I carry, one on my keychain and then one in my shop. That's the only thing I have from Olight. I've heard mixed reviews about their lights on a shotgun. Mixed reviews about on a rifle. I heard the pistol ones aren't too bad, but at the same time, here's the problem when you start getting into smaller companies like Olight. You're not going to find a holster for them unless you can find a company that will make you one. Unlike Streamlight or Surefire, if you're going that route.
So I will have to say I have a good number of Surefire and Streamlight lights, but for weapon-mounted lights, I've been doing a lot of stuff from Crimson Trace lately. I'm slightly biased because I'm friendly with one of the guys there, so I know he's a smart guy. So I expect good things, but I've been pretty happy so far. And one of the reasons is slightly superficial. Here's a Streamlight. It's a TLR7 for compact Glocks.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the click of the switch. Can you hear the click?
Mm-hmm.
That click pisses me off. I'm trying to be quiet, damn it, here. This is the turning on Crimson, Crimson Trace light, same distance from the microphone.
That's why I don't like push buttons. I like paddles.
Paddles work well. I actually on my carry gun, it's actually the gun I did most of the class with. It's another Crimson Trace. It's their laser guard thing. There's a laser and flashlight in there. I don't use the laser, but the pressure switch is routed out, sits on the grip right under the trigger guard. If I squeeze it a little bit harder, the light is on. Don't have to do anything else.
That's what I loved about the old the TLR1, because I could sit there, I could use my trigger finger, or I could use my left hand thumb to sit there and activate the light.
Yeah.
It made a lot more sense to me than some of the other ones that were out. There's one company that comes to mind. They're out of Texas. It's called Nightstick.
No Nightstick.
They make a very nice light for a decent price, and they actually came out with the paddle design on somewhat like a TLR7. Before Streamlight did. Honestly, I was not a fan of the TLR7 because I don't like the touchpads, and they just put them too far forward for me.
Yeah, I agree. On all of this modern stuff, both this Streamlight and the Crimson Trace, they are ambidextrous. When I run a weapon like two-handed, so I tend to basically do this, trigger finger, and with support hand is what I operate the switch with. I try not to use the trigger finger. I'm a simple man. I get confused easily. Trigger finger for the trigger, support hand for the light. But it's personal preferences. Any of the touchpads, that sort of stuff, I dislike. It has to be a nicely tactile way of switching things. Otherwise, in the dark, when you're nervous, nothing really works. Ask me how I know. All right. All right. Grant has something on OLED. Most of the mixed reviews I've seen has been the earlier production. The newer releases I've heard very few bad things. Derek, within our behind the scenes, a bunch of gun tubers would talk a fair bit. Who from our circle of friends has done OLED? Was it Slav Guns?
Yes.
He has.
And I think Alex from Affordable Optic and Rifle Reviews too.
Okay.
I'm not positive on that one.
Okay. I know Slav Guns has. So let me see. He's on hand. Yeah, he is not active now. Okay, never mind. We have our Discord chat group. He's not active. He's not on right now. So if he has a couple of minutes to come on, maybe he can hop on later and see. Okay, that's interesting. So Drew, it lights up the walking path if at bottom, even though I have NVGs, which is why I have them on the side of the rifle. UV on right and white light on the left of the handguard, symmetrical looking. Yeah, NVGs is a different problem. So I don't use NVGs very much. For what I need to do, yeah, I don't really need it. But if you have night vision goggles, that I don't think a weapon-mounted flashlight probably should not be your biggest concern. But then again, I could be wrong. For the rifle, the next light I am going to look at, the next light I'm going to look at carefully is probably going to be an integrated thing. And it looks pretty small, so I can mount it fairly far forward. It's upcoming, again, Crimson Trace. I think I'm going to...
They just launched a new product this week.
Is it CMR 301?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm supposed to get one. I think they launched it. I don't think it's officially out. I'm going to show you what this thing looks like. And that's going to be the next one I try. Let's see, where is that thing? There we go. So this guy.
Yes.
The packaging seems intelligent to me. Once again, I don't use lasers too much, but the way it's packaged, it doesn't really get in the way. Remote switch, the light is in about the right place. And look at how they're showing it on the rifle. If you are going to run a light, basically I like long handguards. I want the light fairly far forward, and that way there is the least amount of spill back. I'm not convinced you can get rid of the spill back entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, they have a few different mounting things, etc. So it's gonna, there you go. That's a nice different bottom view. No, this is side view. So this is horizontal mounting. Yeah, there's horizontal mounting and there is mounting on the side. This is probably how I'm gonna try it. I've messed with it a little bit, and when the light sits on top of a handguard like this, I don't like it. I still see it. It kind of interferes with my side picture a little bit. So I generally prefer it sitting on the side or on the bottom, and we'll see how it all pans out. Okay. All right. So we lost Grant. Grant, thank you for stopping by. Ooh, this is a good question, Derek. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that powerful in existence.
That's a good one.
So I would probably suggest the original full-size Maglite wrapped in sandpaper.
And a 45.
Something like that. Or you're trying, or you're suggesting trying to see the column through the throat. I mean, that's also possible.
Right.
There was an old joke how surgeons from 3 different countries get together and start bragging how their country has the most advanced medicine. and how they come up with the best methods of surgically removing certain internal organs and stuff, right? And I'll shorten the joke. Generally, it's a long story. American guy goes, well, we invented this pill that a patient swallows. It goes through throat, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, takes out the appendix, packages it all up, and comes out the natural way. Nobody feels a thing, no stitches, no recovery, nothing. Everything is great. French surgeon goes, well, we invented this pill. Patient swallows the pill, appendix just dissolves and disappears, and you don't have to worry about it and all that sort of stuff, right? And then the Soviet, it was from Soviet Union days. Soviet surgeon goes, well, we take a scalpel, we shove it up a patient's ass, and it travels through large intestine, small intestine, stomach, esophagus, takes out the adenoids, and then travels back the way it came, right? And then, the other surgeons are horrified, but why would you do this? These adenoids, they're so easy to reach through the mouth, painless, simple, local anesthesia. And the Soviet surgeon goes, you do not understand, guys. In our country, in Soviet Union, everything is done through the rear end. Right? So, and when you talk about Democrats who are trying to rebuild Soviet Union in North America, I mean, it may not be that far off from the truth, right?
Right.
So, all right, Crimson Trace. Speaking of Crimson Trace, their Hardline Pro scopes just came out. Any early thoughts on their scopes? Are these Chinese or Japanese-made scopes? Neither. They're actually Philippine-made scopes. I suspect they are made in the same place as some of the GLX Philippine-made scopes from Primary Arms, where Nikon used to be made, where a lot of SIG whiskey scopes used to be made, and a bunch of others. They look promising. I've been messing with the Brushline Pro. It's pretty good. It's a nice hunting scope. Hardline Pro is a little bit higher end. I have seen some very similar scopes from the same OEM, so I am cautiously optimistic. They've gone through, for those basic core designs, I think it's like Gen 4 now, so they've been worked out pretty nicely. I have a suspicion that Crimson Trace will do fairly well with them. Some of the reticles to me are a little bit goofy, but they're workable. And I know they're working on other reticle designs, so there should be some good things. Derek, have you looked at any of their stuff lately?
Not in a while. I was going to send them out an email and see if they were willing to send me one to try out.
Okay.
I like their last line of scopes they had. Those were really nice.
Yeah, they had some problems there, unfortunately. One of the sort of issues they had, and a lot of people that are now buying those scopes and closeout are beginning to find some quality control issues and stuff like that. The basic problem with those was that they were not cheap, and they were kind of Me Too scopes. So there are several other brands that are selling exact same stuff with just different branding. Crimson Trace could compete. They're a big company. There's a large company, American Outdoor Brands, that's behind them. But I don't know. It's I think the price range that they are getting into now makes more sense for them, right? It's all, I think, under 1K, which is a nice price range to live in. There's a lot of competition there. Mm-hmm. There's a huge market. I think it's going to be a better price range for Crimson Trace to really establish their brand identity and try out a few things, and then if they want to move up market, they can. I think this is a smarter move for them.
I think the one thing that's going to hurt them on the scope line is that the reticle.
Yeah. I had that talk with them already,
because they're not offering a Christmas tree style reticle in any of them. They're all just a straight line.
Yeah.
Hash mark. I mean, the aesthetic wise, they look really nice. It looks like they stuck with 30 millimeter tubes all the way across, mm-hmm. which is pretty common size scope nowadays. The one thing that irritates me is there is no, on their website, there's nothing for what how much measurement is in it.
Yeah.
So
it's a work. So let's just say this: we've had the "What the hell were you thinking?" speech already. I think I have a suspicion it'll get better. They are really revamping the company. There's a lot of new stuff happening. Okay. So I'm like I said, I'm staying cautiously optimistic, but I've been wrong before.
No, I will say it looks like a nice scope. It looks like it's going to compete with a few other companies that are out there, and that's great because competition is always great to have. Just I don't know. The reticle is the only thing that really turns me off from it.
I'm with you. They need to do better on reticles. The reticles is a comparatively simple thing, but I tried to figure out who designed the reticles for them, and nobody knows. Nobody will. Well, at least they know. They just won't tell me. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm friendly with the brand manager there. I might go against my principles and convince him, give him a couple of reticle drawings for free, just because I like him. He's a good dude. I'm Jewish. There is this law: thou shalt not give stuff out for free, right? And because I'm Jewish, I can make that joke. You shouldn't.
Yes. Not planning on it.
So a buddy of mine, one of the companies I work for a company that's Israeli owned, and I made a Jewish joke, etc. And he was silly enough to repeat it at the internal company meeting. It did not go well, doofus. It was a funny joke. Even in good companies, political correctness gets you a little bit too far.
Oh, just a little. Yeah,
but still, it was a little bit of a mean joke, and I can say it like that because I'm Jewish. But everybody else, it's like the N word. If you're black, you can say it. That's okay. If you're white, God forbid, you'll be like lynched immediately.
Right. You're permanently a racist for the rest of your life.
Pretty much. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So Joe's telling us that 74,000 fraudulent votes found in Arizona audit. So Joe, is that enough to change the election outcome for Arizona or not? Okay, let's wait for Joe to come in. Have you heard about tracked optics? Opinions. I may have heard about tracked optics a little bit here and there, just purely by accident. So yeah, I'm friendly with John. Well, one of the Johns. There are two Johns that own the company. I never get tired of making fun of the two Johns in a company. Simply because if anybody who has ever watched the comedy Men in Tights, when it ended, the Prince John was banished, and since then all the toilets were called Johns. So when the company has two Johns, like my mind can think about nothing else. But no. So Tracks does good stuff. They are good guys. So the origin of the company, the guys were at Nikon. At some point, they got fed up with Nikon bullshit and went off, and they had the relationships with the OEMs already. So they started making scopes. Most of the better stuff there is Japan. Some is in Philippines. I don't think they have anything from China right now. It's not a bad thing. The toric stuff from Japan is very good quality. Very, very good for the money. The designs themselves, they are not hugely different from everything else out there, but they always do something a little bit differently. And conceptually, they're doing good things. I really liked the tactical front focal plane torics, and the toric ELR, the 4.5 to 30 by 56, is doing really well. Bunch of people got it from my recommendation. They're happy with it. Toric hunting scopes are quite good. It's a small company. It's well managed. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. They're profitable. They're doing well. They have some new stuff coming out that looks promising. I'll be looking at a few more toward the end of the year. They're good guys, and it's a good company. It's one of those things, So I don't pay as much attention as many people do to where a particular product is manufactured. I want something made in China, not made in China, all that. So you can argue it in a variety of different ways. But I really look carefully at who the company has here in the US, and if these are good people, if they stand behind their product. And Tracked is not a company I would hesitate to support. Okay. So I hope that answers your question.
Slav and myself had him on Virtual SHOT Show earlier this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I ignored you guys that week. I was doing some work stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you took it very, very personally. Do you think their LPVOs will be daylight bright? Okay, so in all the time you've been listening to me talk, how many times have you heard of me talk about something I've never seen in any sort of definitive manner? I have no freaking clue. I don't know. Can't tell you. Haven't seen it yet, but I will as soon as I see it. So, do I expect it to be daylight bright based on a price range? Probably not. For a good quality scope where they're making them in that price, it is likely to be day visible. I'd be somewhat surprised if it is day bright, but I've been surprised before. So. Let's see. I'm still liking the Element Optics units. Not that I'm not happy with the XTR2, but I will soon be wanting another scope. I think I'm gonna go the route with the Element. Not sure if Titan or Helix. Element makes good stuff.
I would go Titan.
Yeah. Well, look, it depends how much money you want to spend, right?
Well, I haven't gotten my hands on a Helix yet. That's the next one I have coming in for review from Element. But with the Titan, I've gotten it out to 2,100 yards with a 300 PRC on a 225 ELD match.
Okay, that's a good recommendation.
So if I can get that rifle out to 2,100 yards with a $700 to $800 scope, I'm going to recommend it.
Yeah, so I have not spent a ton of time with the Titan, but when Element started out, they were asked me if I'm interested in going on their pro staff, and I'm not. I cannot be on the pro staff of an optics company for obvious reasons. But a friend of mine, I recommended him, and he is on their pro staff, and he's shooting with the Titan, and he's a good shot. And I've never heard the man bullshit. He is deliriously happy with this thing. And he has some nice scopes, and he's happy with it. I've seen the Titan. I have not tested it. It looks like a very promising design. The Helix FFP I do have, and I like it a lot. Optically, it's quite reasonable. It tracks spectacularly, perfectly. So I'm about to do a more careful comparison of sub 500 FFP scopes. I just got the Arcan scope here, and I have the Vortex Venom, and I've got that Helix, and I'll look at them carefully. But up to now, the Helix FFP has been sort of my go-to recommendation for a variable front focal plane, precision-oriented scope under $500. So I like Element. I think they're a good people. They're a good company. I've got some nice things in the high end coming out soon. Right now everything's slowed down, but I liked their high-end Japanese stuff, and I think they have some very clever things happening.
I would say the only other recommendation I would give, if you're and my biggest thing is are you looking for quality glass, or are you looking for high adjustment? The glass is not bad on the Titan. It's better than some of the stuff in its area for the price wise. It does have 26.5 mils of adjustment. If you go mils, I don't know what MOA is on that one. I believe Slav had the MOA model, but
wait a second. Wait. Did you just say that Slav Guns is an MOA shooter?
I think he had it was either him or somebody else who had the MOA, and I can't remember who had it.
There will be if it turns out he's an MOA shooter, there will be no end to the ridicule. Like, it will never stop.
Oh, he's gonna wish he was on here now. I recommend it. The only other one I would recommend, if you're not looking for a high mil adjustment, would be the X5 Conqueror from Right On.
Yeah, so I have not seen anything from Right On. I texted the Right On guy a couple times the last couple of months. He didn't reply, so I'm probably going to stop trying.
Who was you were trying to get a hold of?
I've talked in the past to Jeremiah, and then he vanished on me, so I'll probably stop trying.
Oh, I was going to say, talk to Eric.
I'll wait until SHOT Show. Like, I stopped being very persistent and trying to get a hold of scope companies. Because there's so many of them now. If one of them ignores me, I don't have time anyway. There are just so many. So I no longer make any real effort, and if I'm curious, I'll go and talk to them at shot, where they're all in one place and they can't avoid me for too long. I'm persistent and hard to miss. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So Arizona results. No change for the POTUS, but the 2 House spots can be revoked from Democrats, though. Ooh, that's big. That's real big. Okay. Well, let's see what mainstream news say about that tomorrow. I suspect it's going to be widestream coverage, front page of New York Times, right? It's going to be everywhere. Anyone out there? No, just crickets. Just crickets. Okay.
Yeah,
that's more like it. Not so much bullshit. Let's see, but all right. But I think Maricopa County is holding out. Who knows if anything ever gets fixed? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Didn't you used to be a sheriff out there?
Yes. Back when Joe Arpaio ran it, not this dipshit that's running it now.
Ah, okay.
No, I ran it when there was a real sheriff out there. Not this guy who's. Huh?
What happened to Joe?
He got voted out.
Okay, and what happened to him after that?
He tried coming. I think he ran this last election, and he didn't get enough votes.
Okay. Okay. All right, something about 6.5 PRC we got here. So, Drew and Ryan talking. I really like playing with the 6.5 PRC. It is so smooth to shoot. Price of rounds. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any mileage with 6.5 PRC?
No, I don't. That would be Slav's category because he was an early adopter of the 6.5 PRC, where I was an early adopter of the 300 PRC.
I was an early adopter of the 308. No, I'm not that old. I was an early adopter of 6.5 Grand Light. I had one of the first ones ever made. Didn't feed worth shit with first generation magazines.
I do plan on building a 308 though. That is one thing I do want. I miss my 308.
You know, I have this 308 fix that I took that cheap with. Oh, by the way, so in a week or so, I'm gonna have the Euromount, the skull with the horns. That'll be cool.
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna try to figure out. Originally I thought I'll move the flag and hang it right here, but I kind of like the flag here, so I'll find where to hang it. But anyhow. So now that I got the sheep with that gun, that scope and that gun are staying together and never changing. So everybody needs to have one good 308. And that one is mine. So
I was going to say, I do got an Argentine Mauser sitting here next to me.
Well, it's 7x57.
No, this is a 7.65 by 53.
That's still not a 308.
No, close enough, though. It's a 303.
Yeah. That's one of the weird Mauser cartridges. But yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. We'll see. So what else do we have, guys? Did I miss anything important earlier?
I don't think so.
No, I think we're good. All right. Okay. Ooh, I'm gonna have a few things to say about this that will go against the common wisdom, probably. So I'll let Derek take a shot at it first before I go disagree with everyone.
Oh shit. Okay. 308 in an AR-10 platform. More reliable than a FAL. Not a bad choice if it's something that you're gonna shoot a lot of. But the downfall is reloading. You're gonna have to shoot short base dies. So it's good and it's bad. I had a 308 earlier this year I was playing around with in an AR-10 platform that I built myself. and I was having fun with it. But I always find bolt gun, if you're just going for mediocre accuracy, just to have some fun, to see what you can do with a gas gun, go with a 308. You can't ever go wrong. But if you're looking for precision, you're looking for accuracy, you're looking for something that you can do more with, go with a bolt gun.
So do I start cursing at this point, or you're good?
Go for it, man.
All right. Well, you did. So, Drew, you didn't say what application this is for, right? If you are planning to shoot living things with it and you want to do it in a semi-auto platform, a 308 gas gun is not a bad idea. No. Short of that, it is a terrible idea, and nobody should do it. I don't like large frame ARs. I generally don't particularly like most large frame semi-autos. I particularly dislike large frame ARs because there's a lot of moving mass flying around, and shooting that goddamn thing accurately is just difficult. It's bucking, it's twisting, it's trying to get away from you, unless you make it really heavy. If you made it really heavy, just get a freaking bolt gun and shoot that, right? If it is a reasonably lightweight, large frame AR, it bucks, it twists. You have to hold on to it for dear life. You have to change your technique. You have to change everything is different. Does it work? Yeah. What are you going to use it for? If you're just blinking at the range, take a small frame AR. Build a $6.5 or 6 AR. It's just be done with it. It's going to kick ass. It's going to have the same or better external ballistics. It'll be easier and cheaper to shoot. It won't beat you up as much. It'll weigh less. I mean, it's just so many reasons. The only edge that large frame ARs these days have over small frame ARs in one of the more modern cartridges, the only edge they have is terminal ballistics, right? Still a larger bullet, larger, heavy, etc. If you're not hunting with this thing, don't do it. If you just want to play with one and you view this as your contribution to the overall financial health of the firearm industry, absolutely build 3. Okay. So I've built God knows how many of them. A friend of mine tried to build one, screwed it up, nothing works. I just picked it up, brought it here to the floor next to me. I need to do some gunsmithing on that goddamn thing. I've built a lot of ARs. On my large frame AR, I didn't want to throw it out. And what worked really annoyed me. So what I did with I have a large frame AR. I went and bought one of those Dracos 243 Winchester barrels, those thick concrete-filled barrels that are perfectly stiff and really accurate. That barrel alone is heavier than some of my AR-15s, I think. And in 243, it's a great long-range varmint gun. It doesn't get hot. There is no recoil because it's like 17 pounds or something. Okay, for that, if you want to go varminting with a 243, it works really nice. But it's just not a... Okay, so there are a few questions that I'm going to address, but this last one is the most important. Derek has adopted my hairstyle. What is your problem with that?
I know, right? Why don't you come on and we'll talk about it.
All gun people are large, bold, and have beards. What's wrong with you, Slav?
And we drink beer. Good beer. No.
Well, I'm still recovering from food poisoning, so I'm drinking not beer. That sucked.
You need to go to Ken's question because I think this will just go on top of the AR.
There are a couple other things first I want to touch. So Joe has a half MOA large frame AR with a Criterion barrel. I've never seen a legitimate half MOA large frame AR personally. Doesn't mean they don't exist, but that means I have not seen one. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to argue. Unless Derek wants to add something to the accuracy of Criterion barrel AR-10s.
I don't have any experience with Criterion barrels. I've thought about reaching out to them maybe on the 308 build and see if I can get one or a decent deal on one. Because I've heard good things about Criterion. I just never tried their stuff. I've
tried their 556 barrel. It was very good. I've never tried their large frame AR. Okay, so Drew, it seems like to me from the little experience I have with AR-10s Just feel like the unit is getting beat to death on the BCJ. That's exactly right. The bolt carrier has to be pretty large and beefy, and the movement of the thing front and back, you can baffle it and all that, but it's just a lot of mass moving around, and it tends to not just go front and back, it rotates on you. Now, the bolt carrier on something like the Scar is even heavier. That's why it beats up optics and all sorts of other stuff. But the Scars that I've shot, they did not try to twist out of your hands as much as AR-10s do for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Oh,
Jesus.
Maybe you're not shooting one with the right grip on it.
Anything is possible, but I've shot a lot of guns. But I can't hold a large frame AR the same way I hold a bolt gun on the AR-15. So we'll see. Maybe someday I'll go revisit it. Who knows?
Or Drew, just do it right and build a 338. I mean, just get it done.
Okay, Mr. Ken, why are you so down on the Valdada Recon G2?
Slav, if you're watching, you better jump on this now, buddy. You're gonna want to be a part of this one. This is great.
I was not gonna drink alcohol today. Okay, I'm ready. So, because for a variety of good reasons, I have not had a particularly good relationship with a somewhat unscrupulous proprietor importer of Valdada guns. But regardless, fundamental problem with the Recon G2 is that it is the same core design that Light Optics Works makes for a bunch of other people, shoved into a 34 millimeter tube and costing more than $1,000 more than competition. From a product standpoint, that's largely it. From a company standpoint, I also don't trust the jackass, right? And it is important. I know the people he defrauded, and I used to review IOR scopes, and it turns out he was cherry picking stuff that went to me, right? Anything I got from him was perfect. Anything I got, same models from other means, was falling apart, mechanical issues and everything. I go and make recommendations based on the scopes I test, right? I cannot make any sort of a reasonable recommendation if I do not trust in the company standing behind the product and doing things consistently. Now, a lot of my early experience have been with Valdada's scopes from IOR in Romania, which is a different ballgame. The G2 is made in Japan, so I expect it to be a more robust scope. But for what I've seen, it's the same, like I said, it's the same basic design as a bunch of other things for $1,000 more. So why would I be interested? Okay. All right. What did I miss? Oh, there we go. So Mr. Slav has in-laws coming soon, and that's why he is claiming he's too busy to join this live cast.
Gotcha.
If I had a basement or an upstairs, I could have an excuse, but I have a single-level house. So I guess that's a no-go. Okay, so he has a DSI AR-10, but we can talk about that.
Now, the new DSI 25 that's coming out, that is a platform I do want to get.
So that's actually interesting. He's mentioning DS25. What is that? I'm not familiar with it at all. DS is Darkstorm?
Darkstorm Industries.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that guy.
So the nice thing about they took all the stuff great about the AR-15 and the AR-10, so they made it so you can use an AR-15 handguard, AR-15 buffer tube, AR-15 parts kit, and all that stuff, but still be able to shoot a 308.
Okay.
So you don't have the bigger lug on the barrel. It goes down to a regular AR-15 style barrel extension, I meant to say. So it's converting everything from the AR, what's great about the AR10 into an AR15 platform.
Mm-hmm.
So we had them on Virtual SHOT Show also. No, was it Virtual SHOT Show?
It was not the Virtual SHOT Show. It was a discussion of different laws and stuff. I that's where I remember him from. I was on that one.
Yeah. I think it was the March 8th, the 308 video we did.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, that's going to be interesting to see. Okay, Ken shoots AR-10 half a way with black hole weaponry tri-polygonal barrel. Yeah, I actually have the polygonal barrel in 6.5 Grendel, and it shoots very well. Don't be a jackass. I assume that refers to me. I can't help it. It's genetic. And okay, here we go. So this one. There we go. Your relationship is irrelevant. No, it's not irrelevant. If I know somebody to be a dishonest businessman, that's not somebody I want to turn business to, because I do not have any confidence in his ability to support the product. Okay, that's basically it. It is as simple as that. And you should be unbiased. I have Patriot, Crusader, and G2. Unbiased, it's not because I personally dislike the guy. It's because I dislike his business practices. And I don't think that this is the kind of bias that you want to keep in mind if you are shopping for a product. And if you have 3 of the products, then which one of us is unbiased? Are you sure you're not just supporting your choices, your purchasing choices, not looking at anything else? Oh, there we go. So he agreed that we both agree that I'm a jackass. Stick to your vortex. Yeah, I have a few scopes here. There's a vortex here. Schmidt, US Optics, March, Leica, Miopta, another US Optics, Revit, and SWFA. And God knows what else is here. Yeah, I'm very particular to one brand. Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, that's why you have more optics than anybody else I know.
I have more optics than some of the other companies that make them.
In third world countries. The boot.
Yeah, pretty much. I was chatting with my cousin the other day. You know, we were both immigrants, obviously, from the Soviet Union, and we were trying to figure out, like, you know, what happens if the communists finally take over here? Where else are we gonna go? There's really not much anywhere. There isn't really anywhere else to go, right? But then we kind of looked out over the few people we know, the armory. We can probably pool our resources together and take over Costa Rica or something like that. Seems to be a nice place.
True. Yeah.
Like, I don't like dictatorships. Unless I'm the dictator, then it's okay.
I'm glad I'm friends with the dictator, then. Shit. Geesh, Ken. So
He's biased because of the ability for Valdada to return optics. It's genetic. Yeah, I don't really get this one, so you may want to explain that.
Yeah. That's like saying I'm biased to my own rifles. Well, I kind of am. I build them.
Whatever. Okay, and Slav, if you happen, why we can discuss the new Arcan great scopes, but I don't have confidence long term. So Arcan for me is a very different story than IR. So I just got the first Arcan SH4. It's the first Arcan I'm gonna test. I'm gonna take my time and look at the scope very carefully. And if I like it, I'm gonna go and try to get my hands on a few more that were not received directly from Arcan, that other people purchased and all that. And I do that with every new optic company to me. But with Arcan, I do not have a 20-year-old history of not liking what I see. They seem to be good guys, right? So we'll see. Whether if the company is new, I'm oftentimes willing to take a chance and make some recommendations, like I do with Element Optics or a bunch of others, or Swamp Fox or a bunch of other guys. Why? Well, you have to take a chance on the new guys. It's very different than dealing with somebody who's been around for a while and has a track record has a little bit of an unpleasant smell to it, right? Okay. And bingo.
Wow.
Thank you. It is critical to know the people behind the company, not just the product.
Exactly.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
I get to... Pardon me?
I was going to say, Ken's on a roll tonight.
That's okay. Look, to be fair, Ken, thank you for being here. You don't have to agree with me. I appreciate you watching, and I like the argument. It gives me a better chance to express my point of view. There are companies that I did not want to support. I'll give you an example. Nikon, well, they're no longer in the gun business. They stopped in the rifle scope business, stopped making rifle scopes. I did not want to support them for years before that. I tried. I gave it a shot. I did not like how they supported the customer. I did not like how they treated things. I did not like their view on the market. I did not think they were a gun-friendly company. And I absolutely refused to support them. And somebody asked me, I explained why. It's not personal against the people who work there, whatever else. I did not like them as a company. I did not think it was a good idea. There are a few companies that I personally dislike some people there, but I'm pretty comfortable recommending their products, right? And you generally will not see me talk about it if it's just somebody there I dislike. There's a bunch of companies that hates my ass, right? The most common one, well-known one is Nightforce. I am extremely comfortable recommending Nightforce Attacker. I don't like their lower-end scopes very much. Attacker is an excellent design. I recommend it all the time, where appropriate. Although Nightforce people hate my ass, will never send me anything, and I'm okay with it. Doesn't matter. The product stands on their own merit. Well, I dislike some people at Nightforce. The company makes a good product, stands behind their product. I'm comfortable recommending them. My relationship with Nightforce is arguably worse than with Valdada, and I'm comfortable recommending Nightforce and not so much Valdada. If I'm ever found strangled in a ditch behind my house, check what the Nightforce people were doing, and Kalis Swarovski, right? I don't think Valdada would be under suspicion.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
All right, so Ken and Slav are having a discussion. Oh, Lardog is not a Vortex fanboy either. No, guys, I'm not really a fanboy of anything. I've been around this for a long time. There are some companies I like. I like how Vortex treats their customers. I think that deserves a ton of respect.
Sure.
I've given them good reviews. I've given them bad reviews. To their great credit, when I ripped some of their products to shreds, they didn't enjoy it one bit, but they didn't take it personally. And that says something.
And they still send you stuff.
I think it's probably a defensive measure. At least they know what I have, and they can prepare for the ass ripping if it happens.
Break out the Vaseline. Break out the Vaseline.
Pretty much, yeah. Oh, there we go. So Ken is from Joe. Joe Cyclops endorsed you. What a mistake. You know, Ken, go tell Joe that. Joe and I disagree on a ton of stuff. I like Joe. He's a good dude. We get along well because he's not a particularly thin-skinned guy, which is kind of nice.
Well, shit, Joe even came on the show one night.
Yeah, no, I talked to Joe for a bit. He's a good dude.
Oh, I know. I have his personal number.
Yeah. That tripolygon, is that referring to the outer diameter of the barrel or the inner rifling? That refers to the inner rifling. That's how sort of with polygonal rifling, it has basically three wide, not wide grooves, but these polygonal shapes. That's how it works. Oh, Joe has a good idea. Let me know if you want to invade Cuba.
I'm down.
Derek, what do you think?
I'm down.
I mean, down with the idea, or you're up to it?
Oh, I'm up to it, man. Let's roll.
Okay. Cuba is nice.
I got the
People
rifle.
are generally friendly. My Spanish is not very good. There's a lot of space.
They'll be speaking Russian within a month anyway.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know if they won't be speaking Russian. They'll be cursing Russian. And so will you by the time I'm done with you.
True.
Yeah, Cuba is not a bad target for takeover. All of their weaponry is Russian stuff from the 50s. It's all rusted away by now, so I'm not concerned. Okay. JB, can you have fun with your Valdada? We'll talk about other stuff. You're just stirring up stuff for fun. Look, I don't mind at all, right? Every time somebody comes Every time we do a live cast, somebody asks about Valdada or brings up T-Rex or something like that, and I make a great show of drinking booze and having fun with it. I'm mostly having fun with it. I do not get tired of explaining why there are certain companies I do not want to support. There's nothing really wrong with that.
No, not at all. I'd like to know what Ken's background is.
Who knows? Joe recommended me, so he's one of Joe's guys. Good for him. Joe likes Valdada, right? So they get along, I'm sure. If I don't like a company,
I was gonna say, Ken, don't forget to go subscribe to my channel because Joe recommended me too.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going there, why not?
Okay. So if I don't like the company's practice, I will not support them. That's generally a good policy. Find out if this kind of stuff matters to you. Find out what the company is and see if you want to support them or not. There's a lot of competition.
There you go.
The correct phonetic sound of the word Adidas is Adidas. It's not Adidas. It's Adidas. Although the company is technically German, but Russians almost ended up speaking German, so it's okay. Okay, Slav is trying to convince Ken that I know what I'm talking about. Well, Joe, guys, so Joe has a much bigger YouTube channel than I do, and he's a good dude and he knows his stuff. So let's not. We may agree or disagree. I'll say this: so he knows his stuff unless he disagrees with me on those issues. He doesn't. My girlfriend says you're way too arrogant, and I agree. Nikon is garbage, I assume. I agree with your girlfriend. I'm probably way too arrogant. That's okay. Ooh. My girlfriend says maybe you should do your podcast from a treadmill. Derek, is that you or me or both?
That might be both. But just know, beers drop panties, Spouty. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, so Ken, I generally don't do personal advice. Make sure she's a girlfriend, not a wife. She sounds mean.
Shit.
Last week at the range, I ran into the guy that purchased my SIG Cross I sent in on recall. Never tested it when I got it back after 9 months. He had to send it back in, as it must not be right. That's an interesting data point. I was thinking of looking at the SIG Cross rifle fairly carefully.
It's a nice rifle.
Yeah, well, there is a story to it, right? So I shoot with Q guns quite a lot. I have the fix, mini fix, honey badger, a couple other things here and there. And the guy at SIG, who is the engineer behind the Cross, he was originally together with Q. They had a falling out with Kevin and Ethan, I have no idea. And then he went back to SIG, and the result of him going back to SIG was the Cross, which is basically sort of intended to be kind of like Q's fix, just for less money. Now, it's not a ripoff. Conceptually, it's the same thing. It's the action is very different. Everything's different. So I was very curious. I like these kind of lightweight bolt guns, but we'll see. Dash, I have his number too. You think I talk crap without knowing? Dash, Derek, I think that's you. Okay.
So I got a new nickname. Sweet.
Yeah. Is that Dash? Where was a movie or cartoon or something with The Incredibles? It wasn't one of the kids Dash?
Yes, the little boy.
I am so using this. That's what is wrong with people. You forget we can disagree and still be friends, or at least civil. Yes. Guys, I'm just having fun. I have nothing else. Seems like an entertaining guy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now we have practical advice. Slav thinks that Cuba is too big. We need somewhere small that we can take over and hold. Okay, I have an idea. How about we take over Cuba, turn it over to Florida, and hold the end where Guantanamo Bay is? America doesn't seem to want it. Anyway, everything's already built up. There is a fortress. What do you think?
Or how about Panama? Then we take control of the canal.
No. It's been pretty much purchased with Chinese money at this point. Panama. We need an island. Defensible. Yeah.
Oh, I like Ken's latest question. That's a good one.
please note, I never had any issues with the SIG Cross when I had it before the recall. Yeah, so I have no personal experience with SIG Cross. I know they had the recall, and I know a few people who have had problems. So I need to think about it. My primary interest in the SIG Cross, other than the fact that I like lightweight guns, is that I'm really curious about this high pressure cartridge, the 277 Fury. There are several people working on this high pressure cartridge design, and I find it actually interesting. So I was thinking of, so speaking of other companies I'm friendly with, I'm also friendly with SIG. I was thinking of borrowing a rifle from them to play with. So that's going to be interesting. T-Rex is a pod, mechanical engineer. I don't know what that means.
Oh, I asked him what his background was.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that mechanical engineer explains all. Does Valdada have a fat affiliate program too? I have no idea. No. So, okay, that's not 100% true in the sense that there are a couple of companies I do some consulting for, and they do pay me for that. And I do have an affiliate account through, what's it called? Event Link. So theoretically, there are some, I get a commission when I use one of my links to purchase a scope, but the commission is not direct through a company. It goes through Brownells. Basically, I have an affiliate account with Brownells, with Europtic, Primary Arms, that kind of stuff. So in the grand scheme of things, I do not give a rat's ass money-wise which scope I recommend. Or these large companies carry everything. It's all the same to me. Okay. So what are your thoughts on the RPR 338 Lapua, or is that garbage too? Yeah, I think Slav guns should be in this. Derek, have you ever used that one?
No, I have experience with an RPR, but not in a 338.
Yeah.
I have experience with putting them together because I worked at a sporting goods store. They're a nice rifle. They're a great beginner 338 Lapua. Same with the Savage 112 Target, the 110 FCP. They're all great off-the-shelf 338s. That's more on the higher price side, but it's a good gun. It's not junk at all. It's just the one thing with Ruger is the first production run of them, they did a 20 MOA base, so where the second production run, they did a 30 MOA. So it's just depending on what one you got.
Okay. I don't have any experience with the 338 version of the RPR. I used to shoot 338 for quite a few years, but it wasn't a Desert Tech. I've have a good amount of mileage with an RPR in 6.5 Creedmoor, and I like the gun overall. But I agree with you. For the money, it's a very good gun. Yeah. For snobby people like me, I can do better, but it's more money, right? So you got to choose what you want to spend.
So, I shoot a Savage 112 Target Magnum. I am a 338 shooter. I've got a 338 Ackley improved right there. I custom built. And I'm also I'll be shooting a 33 XE soon. So it's all in all, the Lapua is a great round. Or Lapua. Let me get that right because Slav's in the chat room.
It's okay. He's not on live, so you can imagine steam coming out of his ears, but you can't see it, so it's okay.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah.
The RPR is a nice one, and the thing with it is it does have some weight to it, unlike some of the other ones that are on the market. If you don't mind hefting it around, great. If you do mind, well, great. Go either way.
I knew a guy who, to test a rifle scope for a company I know, spent a little bit of time shooting an unbraked 8.5 pound 338 Lapua Magnum prone, and ended up with a detached retina from that.
Yeah, you have to have a brake on a 338.
Yeah.
There's no other way to shoot it.
So when I shot with 338, it was a bullpup Desert Tech. I had a Gen 1 Desert Tech back then. And I once made a mistake. I set up prone at the shooting range in LA between two concrete benches, and it was a fairly short gun. I did not look carefully. I did not get the muzzle brake sufficiently far forward, and it was this side port muzzle brake. And when I fired one off, the blast hit the concrete benches, reflected off of them, and converged on my head.
Jesus.
If you ever think I'm weird, I think that started that day. No, I need to build a proper long-range gun. I'm gonna do either the new Top Gun, or I might do one from Hoplite Arms. They've got some cool stuff happening. So I might do 338, might be 300 PRC. I need to decide.
I plan on doing another 300 PRC next year.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do one on a custom action this time.
Yeah, like I keep on trying to decide what I want to do. Right now, Hoplite Arms is probably the front runner. Once again, they've got some high pressure cartridge development happening. That looks really promising.
And not the tub gun? Wow, I'm shocked.
I might do the Top Gun, or I might do the Hoplite Arms. It depends. Top Gun is really cool, and I'm curious to play with Schneider barrels. But I'm a nerd engineer, right? And this high pressure cartridge stuff is really intriguing me. All right, so what else we have? JB. What are your thoughts on what is going on in Cuba? Do you think civilians have a shot at taking down communism there, finally, without help? Ooh, good question. You want to take a shot at this, or should I?
I'm for hire.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of personal experience, right, with collapsing communist countries. My formative years was the collapse of Soviet Union. I left Soviet Union about 2 months before it officially ceased to exist in 1991. And I remember the coup d'etat attempt in Moscow the summer right before we left, when tanks rolled in and all sorts of other fun stuff was happening. I don't have enough of an insight into current state of Cuban government and Cuban security forces to have any sort of a strong opinion. The track record in small countries of communist dictatorships collapsing is not very good. Soviet Union collapsed because it was a major power, and America basically bankrupted. It just couldn't survive the competition, and that caused the final blow, and then it just fell apart. Too big, too ponderous. But we do know that if you really want to, and there is nothing active happening externally, we do know that in many small countries, North Korea, various banana republics in Central America, Cuba, and a bunch of other places. If you're ruthless enough and you have sufficiently well trained and numerous security forces, and remember, if you're in the security forces, you live much better than everybody else, right? You have something you're defending other than the political system. Small countries often remain in power, right? One of the things you always want to keep in mind about Marxist totalitarian regimes is that they are perfectly willing to accept any amount of death and misery of other people in pursuit of their own power. And I do not know if Cubans will be able to do it without external help. On the other hand, I do not know for sure what kind of external help anybody can do. If we had balls in the modern day, we could do it, right? I mean, we spent all this time nation building in the Middle East, which was just a stupid idea. You can't nation build in the Middle East. I could make a pretty good argument that you could nation build in Cuba, right? Go in, get rid of the assholes, but how do you prevent the next dictator from coming to power? So you have to stay there long enough and yet not be intrusive enough. Nation building is difficult, but if a nation building can be done anywhere, it would be Cuba, because it is in our backyard, pretty much, right? The biggest arguably one of the biggest mistakes America did was not making Cuba one of the American states 100 years ago. All sorts of problems could have been resolved, but no such luck. So to answer your question, I am skeptical but it is possible with a little help. All right, what else we got? Okay.
So I'm gonna have to head out. I've got to get ready for work.
Okay, so
Unlike many people out there, they live on unemployment. I don't. So
hey, I'm working here. Oh, I had a donation from somebody. Oh, JB, thank you, sir. I really do appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Last question. I think Slav already addressed it. 6mm arc accuracy problems, and what's the solution? Are you aware of any significant accuracy problem with the 6 arc?
Out of the AR-15 platform, me and another YouTuber were talking about this one today. He did not have very good accuracy out of an AR-15 platform, but he has phenomenal accuracy out of the bolt action platform, and he's got over 5,000 rounds through a single barrel right now.
Interesting. I don't know. So I haven't built my 6 arc yet. I'm kind of interested in it in an accurate semi-auto. What I haven't decided yet is whether I want to build an AR-15 for it or whether I want to do some other semi-auto platform. I'm leaning toward the latter, just because I have a lot of AR-15s and I'm bored. So it's entirely possible I'm going to wait for somebody like Desert Tech or somebody else to make a high-quality semi-auto that is already chambered for it, but we'll see. I'm cautiously curious. In a bolt gun, 6 arc does not make a ton of sense to me, I'll be honest with you. Because go ahead.
It does in the PRS world.
Okay, that's fair.
Because low recoil, you can run the bolt faster. It's a 6mm cartridge, and for being a 6mm cartridge, it's not a lot of barrel wear on it.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I mean, like with the 6GT, this is going to be about 2,500 round barrel life.
That's true.
Kenny over at Eagle Eye Shooters / Desert Precision Gunworks, he has been running the 6 arc since it came out. He built the barrel on a Savage 110 platform, and he's been running it for competitions. He's done 2 with it already, and he's placed in the top 15 both times. So he's been doing really well with the 6 arc.
Interesting. So I don't do that kind of. I generally don't do any kind of competition. I'm thinking about doing an RL22, but I'm most interested in an RL Hunter. And you cannot do it with a 6 arc. It has to be a larger cartridge.
I think it has to be like a 6 Creedmoor or bigger.
6.5 Creedmoor or bigger.
Yeah, I've got my 6.5 Creedmoor back there, but it's not on a hunting style platform.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be a perfectly hunting style platform. There are just some weight limitations. But rule-wise, that's an interesting competition for me, so I might try that. So for me, 6 arc is interesting as an SPR-ish type accurate AR-15 or a similar accurate semi-auto platform. And I'm still trying to decide which one. Okay. All right. So Derek, if you need to go to sleep, thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, I got to go to work. Unfortunately, I got to run a facility tonight. So.
Okay. So you're not going to sleep. You're actually going to work. You're working at night?
Yes, I work 3 nights and 2 days.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a nap for both of us, huh?
Yeah, right. I'll see you guys later.
Take care. Thank you for joining. Really appreciate it, sir.
You too. Bye.
Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got. Joel, that's why we invade. We will get help from locals. Yeah, that always gets complicated. Getting rid of a communist regime is always a good thing. The more complicated thing is to think through what's going to happen next soon. I don't think America is willing to invade and annex Cuba. It would be good for the Cubans probably, but I don't think we're willing to do that. If we are nation building, that something needs to be thought through very carefully. Okay. Because my girlfriend bought me 2 years ago, AR-10 was built for her. Okay, got it. All right, Drew has other island ideas. Drew, an island. Guam is an island in the middle of nowhere. 4 people can take that island over, 2 can hold it. Not a bad idea. Guam is kind of far though. Nice weather though. But a buddy of mine is from there originally. Not a bad idea. I'll think about it. The problem with Guam is that it is an American protectorate. So if we try to do a military takeover on Guam, we may have to deal with the U.S. United States Air Force base over there. And I know a bunch of people who serve there. And I kind of like them, so I'd rather not get into that. Just joking, of course. All right, those will have. Okay, Ken is talking about his dad was working for Savage. Oh yeah, Drew got to my story with the bounce back from concrete. Yeah, it was awful, Ken. Drew. It was awful, man. It was just something. Okay. My 38 ROM is a 13-inch barrel, so hard to get it back too far. Yeah, so I was shooting a Desert Tech, and that's a bullpup design. So it was a 26-inch barrel, if I remember correctly. But the overall length of the gun it's pretty short. Oh, that's an interesting statement. Huh. Biden is looking for another distraction. So next war is either Cuba, Lebanon, or Venezuela. I don't think we're going to be in a war with Lebanon. I think I don't think it's going to be Middle East. I think if something happens in the Middle East, they'll use other countries in the area to deal with that. Cuba or Venezuela, it's hard to say, right? Because if you look at the rhetoric coming out of the administration, they're having a hard time even uttering the word communism and saying that communism is a bad thing. And there is a reason for it. The Democrat Party base thinks that communism is a good thing, and they do not want to go against that base. So I do not think we will see any military action against any communist country under Biden administration. Cuba would fall unless someone wanted to prop them up. Pretty much the only country out there that really cares about Cuba at this point, from a state standpoint, is Venezuela. With U.S., Americans only care about Cuba, as in Cuban Americans in Florida. Otherwise, pretty much Americans seem to have largely forgotten that Cuba exists, and our current administration is supportive of Cuba's communist government, not the free people of Cuba trying to get rid of it. So I don't think there are very good chances there. Exactly. We don't have the balls to stop the communism in the United States. I think we'll stop it in the United States, but it's going to take a little bit more pain and suffering. Nation building is as simple as rum, cigars, and casinos. Having seen the quality of cigars coming out of Cuba lately, I think we should invade them just to fix that situation. They need to do better cigars. Okay. Do you, Karen, do? So Karen does not work at Subway. Karen is a former law enforcement officer, and he does something else entirely. Okay. Oh, Ryan, I picked up an AR barrel to test. So what kind of AR barrel is? Are you talking about 6 ARC, or what are you talking about? Okay. So Ken is continuing to make fun of Derek for being overweight. Ken, don't be a dipshit. Oh, there you go. Ken, Slav already took it to test for it. Fine, then I can skip that over. Okay, so these, Slav guns. So these are different 6-arc barrels. T-box is sub half MOA, Faxon sub MOA did not test the proof of ballistic advantage yet. There are clearly, so I've talked to a lot of people with 6-arc. There are clearly a lot of 6-arc, accurate 6-arc barrels out there. If I wanted to build an AR-15 in one, I'd probably lean toward T-box from what I've seen, but proof barrels really speak to me, so maybe that, I don't know. William Brown. Cuba is getting support from Argentina, Middle East, and South Asia. They're very active with intelligence agencies. So Cuba is getting support, Argentina a little bit, Middle East not too much, a little bit of Iran. Cuba getting a fair amount of support from China. China has been busy installing all sorts of various telecommunications networks there, primarily to spy on us. But honestly, if we wanted to deal with Cuba, we could, and there'd be all sorts of international condemnation for about 5 minutes, and that would stop. Okay. I have been to Havana, Cuba. Okay, so Drew managed to kick somebody's ass in Cuba and bail out. Good choice, bail out. Jessica wants to know if you can blow her a kiss. No, I cannot. It is against my principles to blow a kiss to people I can't see. Okay, thoughts on pew science testing silencers and upsetting manufacturers. So I don't know if I've seen some of this stuff, not everything. I don't know a huge deal about sound testing. I deal with primarily electro-optical test equipment. I mean, that's sort of what I do. I don't know if you've been here before. For my day job, I run a small company that makes electro-optical test equipment, rifle scope testers, targeting payload testers, missile seeker, calibration tools, all sorts of stuff like that. I don't do acoustic testing too much. I have some rough familiarity with acousto-optical sensors and a few other things, not too much. I generally sympathize with the guys at PPU Science. They seem like they know what they're doing, and it's not an easy thing. I've pissed off a lot of optics manufacturers over the years by basically saying what I find and not being particularly concerned about their feelings, right? And PPU Science is doing the same thing with suppressors. So I'm generally supportive of the idea, and they seem to be competent. But this is not quite my field, so I don't have any very strong opinions on the subject. PPU is quite good. A ton of BS in silencer community. Yes, that seems to be the case. I've been digging a little bit in different silencer descriptions and all that. Some of the stuff I see is clearly unsupported by any sort of technical understanding. But there's so much of it out there, and I'm sort of avoiding digging. And I'm thinking I might get an FFL with an appropriate, stamp or whatever it's called, edition, so that I could accept silencers. I might do some silencer tests. I have access to some interesting meters and stuff like that, so maybe I'll do more with it, but not just yet. Ken, she is depressed. I assume that's the mythical Jessica. Ken, you're a man. You know how to make her less depressed. Go do it. Okay. Ken, can you tell me the optimal charge weight of Varget in Peterson BP? I don't know what Peterson BP is, and I don't use Varget very much. So I'm not sure if this is a part of the conversation with Slav or somebody else, but you guys please address this. This is not something that I can easily address. Okay. All right. Peterson brass with cutting edge 168 and okay, that's gonna be for somebody else, guys. If you can make a recommendation, please do so. I'm out of coffee. All right. Folks, we've been here for about 2 hours and 20 minutes. We had a nice discussion of what tropical island we should take over if communism comes to the United States, or what tropical island we should encourage the United States to take over, and all sorts of other wonderful things. Okay, there's actually an interesting question there. Any thoughts on scopes with a 12 to 16 pound NRL Hunter matches? So there are a few good options. A lot of it really depends. A lot of that really depends on the rifle. So I'll need to see if I can find it. I don't run very high magnifications, and you can't have a very heavy scope. Otherwise, you will have significant restrictions on the gun. One of the better potential rifles that I've tested in recent years for this kind of stuff is this straight pull Savage. Let me see. I should have a picture here somewhere. Where is it? Give me a second, guys. I will show you a setup that I really liked for this kind of stuff. There we go. And I'll show you which exact scope that was, so you will see. Okay, there we go. So I was putzing around with this a little bit. This is a Savage Impulse Predator, and the scope on it is the US Optics FDN 17X, this guy. It goes from 3.2 to 17. There's a little bit of tunneling on low power, but you don't need that for the Hunter. Magnification range is about right. It weighs about 30 ounces. The rifle, I think, is about 9 pounds. Altogether, this package was right under the 12-pound limit. And the scope was really, really easy to get behind. It tracked accurately. Optics were good. JVCR reticle is good for this kind of games. Honestly, for the money, this is really good. So there's a new scope coming out. It will be announced next month. That's the one I had on my sheep rifle. That is even lighter than this. Has good magnification range, good optics, moderately inexpensive. That will be a very good scope for this. Stuff in the 4 to 20, 5 to 20 range with 42 to 50 millimeter objectives is going to get you in about the right size magnification wise for the 12-pound range, for the 12-pound class. For the 16-pound, you have more freedom in terms of what you can use. Extra 4 pounds is a lot of weight, and there it sort of comes down to how heavy of a rifle you want and where you want the weight to be. Right? You can do this two ways. You can use a similar type of gun and just put a larger scope on it, and like some of the 3-pound stuff, like the one I'd use is a Tangent Theta 5 to 25 that I have, which is amazing. With a 16-pound weight range, it's really easy to make it with a full size 5 to 25 or thereabouts scope. The question is whether you should. Given that there is a limited round count with an NRL Hunter, and you are sort of motivated to do different things, and based on the spirit of the gun, I would probably not go for the heavier gun. If I really wanted better optical performance, I'd just go for a heavier scope. For example, my 308 fix with the 5 to 25 Tangent Theta actually squeezes under 15. So any 9-ish, 10-ish pound rifle that can be quite nicely set up, accurate and everything, with a 3-pound scope will still easily get you under 16 pounds. So under 16 pounds, you don't really have any sort of a significant rifle scope limitation. But under 12, I'd probably stick to like a 5-20, 3-20 type stuff, like the US Optics FDN17. This new scope that I'm talking about, if you want to spend some money, for example, something like this Schmidt Ultra Short 5-20 is a good option. There are quite a few others. Okay. So let's see. That's something from AGB. Great looking factory class setup. I think US Optics scope is too expensive for a factory class rifle. I'm sure there'll be, but this is just an example of a gun. I found the stock quite comfortable. It has different comb risers, and as is, it was really weird. This was, of all the different factory guns that I've shot, this was one of the easiest for me to shoot accurately and stay on target. Straight pull, I didn't, but the straight pull action worked well for me. The stock, by the time I got everything set up, was lined up well. It really, really worked nicely. To boot, that particular rifle was stupid accurate, but the bastards at Savage refused to sell it to me, so I had to send it back. Look, I might just do it with my fix and be done with it, because the fix is stupid accurate as well. And while it's lighter, I can put a heavier scope on it and still be good. So. Let's see. There we go. Yes, tangent 5-25 plus carbon versus Leupold 5-25 and steel barrel trade-off. If that's how, it depends on how good your carbon barrel is, right? For extended strings of fire, I have not seen a carbon wrapped barrel that was as good as same diameter steel barrel, right? And I would probably, if you need to make weight, I would probably go do the Leupold and steel barrel, because Leupold Mark V is a good scope. It's not as nice as a tangent, but it is a good scope. And if you are shooting a lot, a steel barrel will just be more consistent for you. My fix actually has a proof barrel, and I have not had any real issues with it, but it's general purpose gonna hunt with it and do long range and do everything else with it. But I don't do really long strings of fire with it. So if that's the trade-off for competition gun, I'd do the steel barrel. All right, let's see. I'm gonna go through the comments. So Ken's still talking about Varget. That's interesting. That's about suppressors. So William is saying, if you do get into testing, Nation Instruments has a very nice turnkey setup. Yeah, it may be a little while before I do this, but I'm thinking about it. Okay. Drew, have you played Sleds for Slav? Any of the drop-in Schillen barrels for the RPR series? Not happy about the price. Just curious. I have not. I've used drop-in barrels with conventional. I've never seen a bad Schillen barrel, I will say this. But I have not used their RPR stuff. Okay. Okay. Jessica says that I sound like Count Chocula. Guys, you have to help me out. There must be some aspect of common American culture that I'm not familiar with. What the hell is a Count Chocula? I have no idea. I will say this. So in the history of the Dark Lord of Optics livecast, I think this is the first time somebody managed to get his wife/girlfriend to watch this thing for any length of time. That is impressive. All right. And Ken loves somebody. Good. Excellent. All right. What else we got? So are you going to get anything from Rayton at some point? I touched on this later. So I had a nice chat with the guys from Rayton a little while back, and I texted him a couple of times. I'm doing kicking off a comparison on some moderately inexpensive front focal plane scopes, and he didn't reply, which means one of two things. Either he was really busy and just missed it, or something I said somewhere pissed him off. They don't want to have anything to do with me. I have no clue. Both are equally likely. I say things that piss people off all the time. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. But the catch is that I'm basically not going to chase after them. SHOT Show will be here soon enough, and I will I'll go talk to them and see what's up. It's not personal. So for a rifle scope company, dealing with me is dangerous and oftentimes not worth it, because they can't really control what I say, and they have to be, and I can be helpful for their brand if I like the scope and I'm sufficiently well known that there is some weight behind what I say. But on the other hand, I can also be very harmful, and there's a precedence for both. If I don't like the scope, I can do a fair amount of harm. I don't think I can do anything very significant. I think they're overestimating my influence, but there is some. So for a company like Rayton, I never know whether they want to have anything to do with me or not. They seem to be doing well. I don't think they need me, so I'm probably more risk than it's worth. But they could just be busy and didn't see the message. Who knows? I don't know. Me, Ken, I'm flattered. Oh, there we go. Count chocolate is a high sugar chocolate breakfast cereal. That would explain it why I don't know. I don't do cereal and I can't have grains anyway. Oh, the plot thickens. Count Chocula is a cereal. He's a vampire character in the front of the box that talks like your typical vampire. I think Ken's girlfriend is implying that I sound like a typical, is presumably Romanian vampire. I don't know if it's a compliment or not, really. I mean, don't do harm, bro. Okay, I can live with that. I don't know. Do I have a Romanian accent? I've never been to Romania. I'd rather not have a Romanian accent, right? If you spent any time in Europe, Romanians have an interesting reputation. Probably don't want to have a Romanian accent. I don't know. Oh, there we go. So JB just picked up an X7 for $399. So look, that's it. I know where that scope is made. Now that is a very, very good price. So I'll do. Next week I'm traveling again. If I have time, I might do something from my hotel room one of the evenings. But if not, it's going to be 2 weeks from now. I'll do another live cast. We'll talk. I might do like a Q&A or something just from my hotel room next week. Oh, there, Slav. Comp X with me. Look, I don't know yet. I need to figure it out. I'll go to the office next week and I'll see. I should probably reach out to Travis and get media credentials now. The problem is that I've got some work travel coming up, and it is not on my schedule. They need to tell me which days they can get in. Then it's I work with the military, and it's they say jump and I ask how high, right? So I'm entirely dependent on their schedule, and it's shifting. So hopefully within the next couple of days, I'll know. All Slavs sound the same, like all Asians are Chinese. Yes, sure. Except Romanians are not Slavic, but sure. Derek is Rayton Prostov. Yeah, Derek shoots for Rayton, I believe. But once again, Derek's relationship with Rayton has nothing to do with my relationship with Rayton, right? What do you think about Nico Sterling? I don't think much about Nico Sterling. They are imported by Legacy Sports, another company that I have not had historically a good relationship with. Not that they hate me, I don't think they know I exist. They had a stint trying to import Callis quite a long time ago, and they screwed it up so thoroughly that I'm still a little impressed by that. Nico is an interesting company. So it's Chinese and Japanese products, mostly Chinese. The lower end Chinese stuff is usual kind of bubble pack type crap stuff. Some of it's a little better. The Chinese stuff, some target scopes, some other things. The Japanese, they seem to be perfectly respectable. For quite a long time, they were kind of like the Bushnell of the Far East. I think Nico is Australian, originated there or something like that. So they were not very big in the US until just a few years ago. They're still not very big, but they're at least they're available. They don't make any of their own stuff. It's all the same, fairly generic OEM stuff. I don't have anything. I've looked at a few, not super careful. I didn't seem to find anything that stood out enough for me to do a thorough test. I've had my hands on a good number, and I don't have anything particularly good or bad to say about it. It's just very generic stuff. So, where is that? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Joe. Jesus, Rayton just replied to you? That took a little while. Didn't you reach out a long time ago? Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I'll be curious. I'll be curious what you think. Okay. So, I learned on Nico, then jumped up to presumably Valdada. Okay. Heard of Black Diamond Optics from Utah. Yeah, there are a couple of really nice guys. They're usually a very small booth at SHOT Show. At first, they were kind of long range hunting guys. I've talked to them a couple of times. They're very friendly. They're good guys. Seem like. Their early offerings were second focal plane stuff, kind of older style long range hunting. They were supposed to get some front focal plane stuff going. My last impression of them is from 2 years ago at SHOT Show, so we'll see what they have now. But I've never tested anything from them. Where is Comp Expo? That's going to be in Colorado somewhere. Don't remember. It's let's just look it up. It's about 6-hour drive from me. I live in New Mexico. Do you have an opinion on the best AR red dot, prism or other for shooters with astigmatism? Any options for pistol-mounted optics? A lot of options for both, really. For an AR, this sort of comes down to what you want magnification-wise. Hold on a second. I am pulling some stuff out, guys. Just give me a sec. And I'll put on the overhead camera and show you a couple of things best I can. All right. Let's see. Let's switch the camera. All right. So, sorry, you guys looking at my empty cup. My desk is always messy. There we go. So, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. And I'll move some stuff around so you can see it a little bit better. So, there are a few options for AR-15 stuff. That's just here. And you kind of need to decide. And you need to decide what you want. If you don't want magnification, there is this new One Power that primary arms just released for compact 1 power. It looks very good. And Swamp Fox 1 power blade. It's another 1 power prismatic, also looks very nice. If you have significant astigmatism, then I would recommend looking at the prismatic. You can focus it to your eye, and that works very well. Shooting is a little different, it's not as forgiving, but it works quite nicely. Personally, I'm really beginning to like some low power prismatics, like this primary arms 2 power, and I have a 1.5 power compact ACOG. That's very nice, and they are good options. So it really, okay. Oh, there you go. So should have said no magnification. No magnification. So the 2 good options that I'm aware of are these new primary arms 1 power. It's about to come out, and Swamp Fox Blade 1X. It's actually quite nice. Not as forgiving as a red dot, but works well. If your astigmatism is not super significant, then a lot of red dots will work fine. If you just need a simple dot, I'm actually kind of liking, there's this new Vortex Spark Solar, surprisingly nice. And with small ones, the Burris Fast Fire 4 is really growing on me. It's kind of a nice dot. I have, there's a British company. It doesn't get as much traction as they should, in my opinion, that I like a lot. It's a company called Shield. This is Shield SIS, and they also do a site called the RMS. That's for pistols, and I use a lot of RMSs and like them a lot. So there are a lot of good options, really. But like I said, if your astigmatism is significant, I'd look for primary arms and Swamp Fox prismatics. If it's not hugely significant, most red dots will do okay. But as we get older, I think prismatics are really beginning to look better than they used to. For red dots, I have not saw Slav there saying that shields have shitty build quality. No, they actually do not. I've seen people break them more or less intentionally. That I've seen. I haven't seen a whole lot breaking. This compact rifle sight in a bunch of different tests in Europe has proven to be more durable than aimpoint micros, which is something. So I've had good luck with Shield. That having been said, I just used one in a rifle class. I managed to put a gouge on the screen, so I'm sending it in for them to replace the screen. But for everything else, I have had exactly 0 issues, and I have a bunch of Shield sights. They're not cheap, though. If you want, they made new case, so you pay for that if you're okay with the Chinese stuff. Holosun with the Vulcan ACSS reticle is very good. I have one here somewhere. And Swamp Fox Sentinel is quite good. There are a few good options. It just depends on how much money you want to spend, really. All right. What did I miss? Oh, there we go. Ken, all pun intended. I really respect you. Thank you for that. Hope your relationship gets better with Val. He has been a good guy to me. Good for you. Look, if it works for you, keep doing it. I don't have any problems with it. I don't think my relationship with Val will get salvaged anytime soon. So, okay. So Slav saying is Grand Junction, Colorado. That's where Comp Expo is going to be. What do you think about Optilith 100 TBS spotter, 100mm? I have one and I like it. Optilith actually makes pretty nice stuff. The problem with Optilith is that it is absolutely impossible to get any sort of God forbid something goes wrong, getting customer support from them. I mean, you have a better chance in the middle of Mojave Desert in July praying for rain. I've tested a few of their spotters. They were quite good, and the 100mm is also quite good. It's not as good as the Swarovski stuff, but it is very good. I had a little monocular from made by Optilith, and now the service in US is done by DTII Optic, whatever. It fogged up. I said, guys, I'll pay for it. Will you clean it for me, etc. They didn't charge me, but it took just over 2 years for me to get the monocular back. And to the best of my knowledge, for people in the US, it's not an isolated experience. The people at DTII Optic in Nevada are very nice and friendly, but Optolit in Germany moves at the pace of their own clock. Is it a bad product? It seems to be a pretty decent product. Would I buy an Optolit product living in the US at this stage? Probably not, because the support is so uncertain. Drew, I just found out a month or 3 ago that I have that eye issue, presumably astigmatism with holosun. With my eyeglasses on, it's perfect, but without double and triple dots and horseshoes and circles. Exactly. So I have mild astigmatism. I can use red dots fairly well, but they are not round, so at longer distances doesn't work too well. Within 100 yards, I'm fine. But also, they look like comets to me and do some other weird stuff. I just kind of learned to have a consistent hold, but it's not ideal. It's one of the reasons I've been looking at prismatics so carefully. Thank you. You're very welcome. Anytime. All right, JB. Get the Delta Striker 1-6 and don't use a red dot. Yeah, so a low power variable is often a pretty good idea. The catch is that you basically have to put up with the weight, right? So modern low power variables are really, really good on 1 power. Delta Striker is really amazing for the money. It's just spectacular. But there are a lot of other options. If you are willing to put up a little bit of bulk and weight, a low power variable is the most flexible choice. I like the prismatics because a lot of modern ones are fairly small, compact. You save a little bit of weight, and size. But if you want the most flexible option, yeah, low power variable is a better way to go. Okay, I think Mr. AGB is good with the low power variables. There we go. Thanks for another great live video. I really enjoy all your videos. Well, thank you, Robert. I really do appreciate it. I have a blast with these. I always enjoy them. I found the Holosun red dots to be really nice. Yeah, Holosun has done a really good job. For the money, it's very hard to do better than Holosun. I have a few of them. My favorite is the pistol one. I think it's a 407 with the Vulcan ACSS reticle. I think it's very clever. It's a very clever combination. Ken, I recently purchased 2 Crimson Trace Series 5. 3-24 by 56 optics and mil. What is your opinion on the Series 5? They're perfectly respectable scopes. They're made by Japan Optics Limited. I didn't like the reticles that Crimson Trace had in them. Optomechanical, it seemed to be perfectly reasonable scopes. Haven't spent a ton of time with them. I tested a 3-18 from Series 5, and I thought it was quite good. 3-24 I've seen, I haven't spent a ton of time with. They are perfectly reasonable. Right now on a closeout, they're fine. The catch is that they've been discontinued, and Crimson Trace has completely revamped their product line. And the new scopes are different, made by different OEM and all that sort of stuff. So they moved down market a little bit. So we'll see. Yes, Slav, we discussed those. Reticle needs work. Crimson Trace really needs work on reticles, but it's they know that. Okay. Oh, there you go. Ken likes the reticle. That's actually important. If the reticle works for you, then it's a good scope. Right. Reticles are very individual. I have some very specific things I like in reticles. Oh, actually, I have it here. So if you ever go to a newsstand, there is this magazine that's out right now called Precision Rifle Shooter. And I have an article at the very end of this thing on this exact thing, something called Precision Reticle Designs, right? Okay. Rather than me rehashing it, this will tell you exactly on my thoughts on what the precision reticle designs should be, what I believe works well, what doesn't, and why. So, like I said, it's if you have the magazine available handy, pick it up, and that will more or less tell you, and then that'll explain also why that particular Crimson Trace reticle is not my thing. Drew, I still want to pimp out a 22 lever action rifle with a PRS scope or red dot and a silencer. That would be so much fun. Yes, it would. I have I have an engraved Henry 22 lever gun. I bought a scope base for it, and I was thinking of putting a big ass scope on it just to take some pictures. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know if I like a scope in that gun. I know the Crimson Trace is structured. It's a shame. The 5 series is really nice, especially at half price. I don't know if it's a shame. We touched on that a little bit earlier. Crimson Trace is fairly new to rifle scopes, but they're backed by a large company. Going down in price a little bit to just under 1K, where they are now, is probably a good strategy. It'll give them a chance to build up their brand in the rifle scope world, and if they want to go to the higher end again in the future, they can. They came out with scopes that I think were a little bit too expensive for a really new brand in the scope world, and I don't think they did great with them, which is one of the reasons they restructured. Honestly, I think it's probably the right move, but time will tell. Robert, just got my Delta Striker 5-50 after watching your videos, and I must say I am very pleased. Thank you. I am glad you like it. A lot of scopes, I say this, almost every live cast. I have a lot of scopes here, and a lot of them come and go, right? And I can shoot and use anything I damn well please, as you may imagine. There are some that kind of never go away, right? And there are a few here and there, like my tangents. A bunch of stuff comes and goes. Tangents always stay. A couple of the strikers are kind of here. I mean, the 5-50 is one of them. It's the only scope I have that's that high magnification. And the very first striker, 4.5-30, I had, still here. Somehow, I always find a use for it. It's somewhere. The 5-50, interestingly, I tend to use the most at closer ranges for like rimfire, airgun accuracy, stuff like that. And it works great. Really like that scope. Really turned out to be a nice design. Okay. Drew, there you go. If you find that issue, let me know. If you get a chance to read the article, let me know what you think. Because Smith & Wesson is a public company. They change ideas as quickly as we change underwear. That's possible, but under the circumstances, I gave it a lot of thought. I'm not convinced it was a bad idea. There might be something good about it. Also, you also have the Henry. Yeah, I have, I think, the Silver Eagle version or something like that. My brother gave it to me for my birthday at some point. Where is it? Is this it? Yeah, this is the one I have. I'll share my screen. Hold on. So, yes. So this is a 22 that I have, and for shits and giggles, I want to put a scope on it and just to take some pictures. Otherwise, it shoots fine. Although I don't like the sights. Maybe I'll just yank out the rear sight and see if I can find the rear aperture or something like that that I can use with it. Okay, American Outdoor Brands was run by bean counters, not gun people. I told the CEO that. He agreed. That's rare. Oh, this was the former CEO before he was let go for banging his employee. Okay, he should know better than that. If you bang an employee, never get caught. But that is a story for a different day. About playing craps with him a few years ago during SHOT Show. There you go. You said in the city and building high-end, they lost their S on them, hence the structuring and trying to capture the US market, which is flooded with run-of-the-mill optics. So Crimson Trace did something fairly intelligent, I think. They didn't go to China, they went to the Philippines. And the core designs they're taking right now for their scopes are generally well-made and robust, and they should be consistent. It should be a good platform for them to build up their brand. Okay. Ryan Rafferty just sent me a message back. Just sent you a message back on Discord. Who? Me? I'm not sure. Okay, I'll figure it out later. Yes, exactly. That's the city. They didn't lose their S on them. They barely sold them. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. Dark Lord of Optics. Are they using the same OEM as primary arms GLX? I can neither support nor deny this claim. There are really two primary OEMs in the Philippines. They both do good work, and Crimson Trace is using one of them. Why did you stall for 5 seconds about Crimson Trace? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. If you think about me thinking whether to confirm which OEM it was, I'm trying to think if Crimson Trace publicly says which OEM it is or not. I just don't know. It's not that critical. Like I said, there are two OEMs in the Philippines that do almost everything there, and they're both quite good. So it's not really an issue. I just got the GLX. Seems okay, perhaps a bit overpriced. I don't remember which GLX did you get. I've played with 2.5 to 10 by 44. I actually like that one a fair bit. But like I said, that OEM has several good designs. Okay. All right, guys, we're at a 3-hour mark. And, oh, there it goes. So I've got the 6 to 24. I haven't tested that one, so I really don't know for sure. We are at the 3-hour mark. And I'd rather not make this go most of the night. We've had some 5-6 hour live casts in the past. I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. If there is enough interest, I can always do a Q&A specific one next week. Thank you all for sticking around with me for so long, and thank you for good questions. And once again, if you guys come here and disagree with me, I am perfectly comfortable with that. Please do, as long as we can all have a discussion in a polite and reasonable way, with occasional making fun of each other, some friendly fun. I'm all for it. Just try. Don't be unnecessarily mean for no good reason. Of course. All right. I'll be quick. Does the Vortex Venom and Strike Eagle have the same internals? No, they're made by different OEMs. JB, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for chiming in. Count Chocula. That's a first. So I've been told that I sound like Gru from the Minions, and but Count Chocula, that's a first. Have a good night, and remember to call if you want to invade Cuba. If they don't fix the cigar situation, it might happen. Thank you, Drew. Thank you for chiming in and stopping by. You got your girlfriend still watching? Jesus. Count Chocula, how's that? So Chinese and cheaper Chinese. Chinese, yes. Cheaper Chinese, no. It's a good OEM. There are good internals. The eyepiece on the Venom I actually like more than Strike Eagle. And the turret feel on the Venom I actually like more than the Strike Eagle. But that could be related to the fact that in the Venom, the turrets don't lock. They're both pretty good. I know in somewhat different ways. I'll probably do a video discussing that. All right, guys. Unlike some people, I don't work at night, but I work in the morning, so I need to go to sleep. Once again, thank you all for chiming in, and I'll see if I can do a Q&A from a hotel somewhere next week. Good night.